I took the night shift because I like quiet problems. Bad cables, bad weather, bad math that yields if you lean on it hard enough. The kind of problems that don't look you in the eye. Kestrel Station is a shoebox of government metal parked in the dark like it owes the sky money. The wind shoulders the siding and the siding complains. Inside, everything hums in the key of fluorescent. You learn the differences. Fan hum, ups hum, refrigerator that's dying hum. It's a chorus that says, "You're not alone, but none of us are people." Price. Chief Petty Officer Dana Ruiz stood in the doorway of comms with a folded sheet of paper held like a prayer card, careful, not precious. The orange knit cap was yanked low enough the cap became eyebrows. Her cheeks were split by dry air and months of unamused. "Yes, Chief." I took one ear cup off to hear her over the fans. "You're on comms till 06. She didn't step all the way in. Ruiz never gave a room her whole body like the building collected a toll. "Copy." She handed me the paper. The fold was soft, edges furred the way fabric gets after too many wash cycles. Night Protocol, Kestrel Station in the font this government uses when it wants you to die on schedule. "New directives?" I asked. "New to you," she said. I opened it, 5 rules, short and not trying to impress anybody. 1. After 23:30, do not answer unfamiliar voices on comms. Power the unit down. 2. If the radio powers itself back on, leave the comms room immediately. 3. Do not look out windows after 0000 regardless of what you hear. 4. Do not open any doors 00000400 regardless of the voice or rank. 5. If your name is called from outside and then someone enters, hide and do not come out until morning. I felt the fans get louder in my skull. Somewhere behind the rack a bearing had learned a new sound, zipper teeth chewed slow. "Who wrote these?" I asked. "Accretion," Ruiz said, "people before us. One guy whose name I don't say." She nodded at the laminated incident checklist on the wall. "You'll ask if we tell HQ we file what they read. We keep what keeps us alive on paper like that." "Is this hazing?" I asked. "Because the kindest possible world is the one where your coworkers are messing with you." "No one up here has time to haze you," she said. "You'll want to assume we're playing a joke because that makes the night smaller. Don't make the night smaller. Make your choices smaller." Across the corridor, Will Harker rolled by on a wheeled stool, toolbox open, a protein bar fossilizing in his hand. He grinned at the paper like it was a lottery ticket he didn't want. "That right there is the part where you don't die trying to be nice," he said. "Or obedient, or curious, all the normal ways. Up here means coordinates stamped into a steel plate by the fire door, a chopper if weather lets it, sometimes weather doesn't let it for a while, and your nearest town is a voice you owe favors." "What am I supposed to do if?" I started. "Exactly what it says," Ruiz cut in. "No improvisation, it wants improvisation." "What is it?" "You'll get your own word." Her eyes flicked to the blacked-out window. Arctic day this month was a bruise on the horizon, and we were about to run out of bruise. "You're from Minnesota, right? You know how cold makes decisions for you." I nodded. "This place is like weather." She said, "It decides, the paper helps you disagree." Will tapped the rack with his knuckles. Guy 2 rotations back disagreed with the paper. He had a better idea. Knock came, he answered, didn't have a better idea after that. "Will," Ruiz warned. "What?" he asked. "He did," she said then to me. "Think of it as a checklist, not a campfire story. Checklists save air crews. They can save 3 people on a box of metal." I folded the sheet until it would live in my breast pocket without cornering me. The rules had periods, full stops that had considered mercy and declined. At 23:20, she said, you run the shutdown drill on HF. Pretend the bird goes down, then log your checks, then sit and watch nothing until it tries to be something. The hollow in your head that wants a voice. She left me with the paper, the fans, and the way red emergency lights turn every room into a photograph of itself. Will lingered. You'll want coffee, he said. Then you'll wish you hadn't. Why? Being very awake doesn't help with wanting to look, he said. Make the window someone else's problem. Whose? He gestured around. The station's. He slung his toolbox and vanished down the corridor, obedience in a hoodie. I did the drill. I pulled the SATCOM channel and pretended our sky had gone quiet. Toggled to HF redundancy. Watched the UPS carry the momentary dip like a running back. Checked RED bus. Checked blue bus. Wrote RED bus OK because Ruiz likes ink. I carried the clipboard past the window without looking at the blackout shade because attention is a resource and Kestrel taxes it at a higher bracket. I updated the whiteboard, wind vectors and gust factors, the north side door lean in inches, our last 3 hours of barometric blips. We map wind like an enemy here, draw its approaches, count its artillery. Know your opponent even if it's air that hates your face. 23:21. The wind leaned on the north door like a big man deciding whether to make us do paperwork. The door held. It's been doing isometrics for months. I logged the gusts because no one gets yelled at for logging wind in the Arctic. On the side table, Ruiz had parked a laptop already open to the incident report template. The subject line read, "Equipment malfunction, after hours." She'd pasted the phrases she wants me to use when the world won't read truth. Autonomous activation means it turned itself on. Thermal variance means temperature dropped where it shouldn't. Pressure anomaly means something was in here with lungs it doesn't have. Extended darkness period means night did the tricks night does. Coded, she told me earlier with a shrug. Language they recognize. Our real language gets filed where people stop having bosses. I practiced once typed. 23:48. HF unit exhibited autonomous activation behavior after manual shutdown. No personnel at controls. Logged and observed. Then I deleted it because practice is tempting fate. 23:29. The clock did a smug blink toward 23:30. I powered the radio down. Switches clicked, LEDs stood down, the rack stayed a hive. A little green status eye died last. The room got microscopically bigger, and I learned that's a thing my brain lies about. Nothing changed but a feeling. Then I waited. I tried to last to 23:47 before becoming furniture. The chair is government issue in the way that says somebody saved money and someone else bought a boat. My headset cable pulled me back toward the middle of the desk like it remembered a previous neck. The PA chimed a cheerful two-note ding-ding we used to pretend was a meal call before meals turned into rituals you attempted at odd hours. No one had thumbed the PA switch. I could see it from here. I didn't move. Silence after a chime feels like a mouth still open. I palmed the rules through my shirt. They felt warmer than paper should. I didn't take them out. Talismans do their job even in your pocket. The radio clicked. Not power up. A relay deciding it had heard enough arguing. I didn't move. Rule #1 had me sitting there with the radio already off, which is the easiest obedience in the world. Rule #2 says, if it powers itself back on, leave the comms room immediately. I had time to wonder what immediately meant to whoever wrote this. 1 second, 2. The kind of immediately that doesn't ask you to make the radio stop doing the thing it's doing because you already tried that and the night doesn't respect repeats. The radio came alive. No boot cycle, no LCD blink. Just alive like a room gets when someone else is breathing. I stood. The chair rolled back with a squeak that felt like betrayal and bumped the file cabinet. I did not look at the screen. The paper under my hand had bones. I took 3 steps to the door because 3 felt like the right size. Behind me, the radio breathed HF hiss like it remembered oceans. Price. Not my mother that time, Ruiz. Her voice had the Boston sanded edges she hides when she's being official. You powered down, right? Good. Come log a line with me. I didn't turn because nothing good in a story starts with the rookie turning when the voice behind him says, "Trust me. There's no camera here. No one deserves my face but me." The corridor took me like a church takes you when you arrive with a problem it's seen every Sunday. Red emergency lights laid color over the floor in rectangles. Red light is how this place says we're pretending to be calm for you. The comms door sighed on its closer. I hadn't left it open enough to sigh. Ruiz's door was closed. No light under it. I put a hand to the knob, then took it away. Rule #4 came to mind, uninvited, doors after midnight. And it wasn't midnight yet, but practicing the habit you want during the test is how you pass tests. I took my hand back and pressed my knuckles into my thigh so the adrenaline had something to do besides choose my next mistake. The galley has 2 exits and a kettle. That felt like strategy. I went there. Will had abandoned his stool in the doorway like he always does by accident. I sat. 1 wheel sticks and does a little scrape every time you shift. I didn't shift. In the wall behind the galley something scratched. Not loud. Come closer, loud. 5 scrapes. Pause. 5 scrapes. I counted the 5s and didn't say the number because speaking numbers here is like writing your name in wet cement. The kettle ticked against its plate the way metal does when it remembers it used to be ore. Steam rose that wasn't steam because the water was cold. Your brain does movies for you when you don't ask for them. Evan. Will's voice came over the PA, softened like he was trying not to wake anyone. Buddy, breaker 3's humming, need your hands. He would. He really would. Just not now. Not with the radio breathing. Not with the paper hot in my pocket. There are versions of Will that are helpful, and there are versions the building does to you because it's hungry. I made a second rule that fit inside rule #2. Don't go toward anything that uses your name at night. The PA went silent. The silence wasn't empty. It had expectations. Price. Ruiz again, softer, like we were in church. Bring the incident template. We'll file the anomaly while it's fresh. I looked at the clock because she could see me look at the clock. 23:59. 1 minute until midnight tried to sell me bad ideas. Her voice came again, the same voice she uses to talk a junior tech down off a ladder. It's easier if we do it together. I'm from Minnesota. We make casseroles when people need things. We don't ignore voices asking for help. That's the whole bite here. The rules make you be rude to survive. Midnight slid its coin into the slot. The building changed shape without moving. I felt it, not colder, intent. Down the corridor, the comms door breathed shut. I hadn't left it open. I stood up, the stool's bad wheel scraping like a match. I started toward the corridor. My hand moved to my pocket, pressed the sheet until it hurt. Pain is a good map when you can't trust the ones on the wall. Evan, Will said again from the PA, and this time he had the music of him. Lazy vowels he gets when he's about to work too hard. Come on, man, it's me. I stopped at the galley threshold. "Will?" I tried. Silence. Then a soft laugh like a 1999 dial-up modem catching a breath. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard it. I didn't. I stepped into the corridor. The red lights hummed. The north side door did a quiet complaint under wind. Somewhere a return vent breathed like a sleeping person trying not to snore. 3 steps to comms. You can do a lot of thinking in 3 steps. I opened the door with 2 fingers because it feels like you can control a room if you open it like you own less of it. I went in without looking at the window. The blackout shade was down anyway, light or dark against dark, an invitation only the worst part of you understands. The rack's LCD was dark, the screen was dark, the radio was not. You can feel on from across a room. There's a warmth without temperature. A presence you recognize the way you recognize a person has entered even before their shoes make a sound. I sat. The chair didn't squeak this time because it wanted me to trust it again. I put the headset around my neck and let the cups rest on my collarbones like a doctor pretending at a different kind of medicine. I did not touch anything. I did not speak. The fans hummed. The PA did not chime. The wind corrected our posture. I could hear my pulse in my ears and wished I could file it as pressure anomaly. Behind the panel, a relay clicked once. Then the speaker breathed HF hiss like the ocean had learned to whisper. And then, easy as a mother tugging a blanket over a sleeping kid, a voice came through in a tone that had not been heard in this building. A tone that belonged to the kitchen at home in St. Paul on a school night when the snow refused to stop and the house smelled like cinnamon. Evie. The day after the voice said Evie and made the room feel smaller than skin, Kestrel behaved like government buildings do when they've witnessed a crime. It straightened papers. Ruiz made coffee that tasted like compliance and had me rewrite the night log the way the template likes to be lied to. Autonomous activation, thermal variance, extended darkness period. We did not type my mother's kitchen or the way a nickname can be a blade. By late afternoon, bruise light smeared the horizon. We'll check the gen shed with a tether and a mouthful of curses for the ice that had opinions about his ankles. I painted wind on the whiteboard, vectors, gusts, door lean, until the board looked like a coach's playbook for a game where air wanted us benched. Rule 3, Ruiz said as she taped the paper back to the comms wall, even though I kept it in my pocket like a sacrament. Tonight it will try the windows. It always does after it learns your name. How do you know it learns? Because it stops being sloppy, she said. Sloppy doesn't bother with windows. Sloppy wants you to open doors. She didn't tell me the story of the guy whose name she won't say. She didn't have to. The station keeps that story in the way the north wall hunches against the wind like a man bracing for another hit. At 1912, the wind shifted southeast and the world outside went from black to darker because the drifted snow started falling sideways instead of down. On the north feed, one of the fixed cams that stares at the generator path, I noticed a shape. Sled. I asked no one because no one in a place like this is the first person you talk to. The monitor put it 50 yards out, directly on the path we use to cross when weather allows. Rectangular, snow-humped. The profile of a standard supply sled, metal rails, deck, canvas lip. It had no tow line and no tracks that made sense. The wind had polished its edges to a neatness the wind does not usually respect. "Chief," I called, and Ruiz leaned into the doorway without committing her full weight to the room. "What am I seeing?" I pointed. "We expecting a drop." "Didn't get a ping," she said. She squinted at the feed. Her eyes are the kind that have been taught to be unimpressed. Could be a drift playing dress up. Or a sled without a letter, Will said from his doorway. Happens in storms. They slide. They lie. He said it like a joke, and it wasn't. I toggled the digital zoom. The pixels did that thing where they turned certainty into a mosaic. The sled sat in the absolute stillness objects get when you look at them too long. I'll thermal it, I said, grabbing the FLIR monocular from its hook. We use it for polar bear checks and finding leaks when the pipes pretend they are bones. I crossed to the south window in the hall because it gives a side angle on the gen path. The blackout shade was up, day rules, and the glass wore a thin rime of ferns that had grown there since lunch, delicate leaves drawn by a winter that has time for art. I cupped my hand to block reflections and pressed the FLIR to the glass. The monocular whirred and painted the world in bad oranges. Hot is white, cold is black, and everything else is a negotiation. The world at 50 yards was a study in ink. The sled was nothing at all. No heat signature, no retained warmth, not even the gray ghost of something that has been near life. It should have carried over, I said. Metal has memory. Some things remember in different directions, Ruiz said. Will reached past me and breathed on the glass. Frost claimed his breath grew lace where the fog had been. Ferns, he said. My grandma called them ice ferns. Said if you traced them with your finger, the cold would know your hand. Don't trace them, Ruiz said. He didn't. I tried the FLIR again from a slightly different spot on the pane, a trick you learn to dodge reflections and get a better angle. The monocular hummed, the image reset, and the sled was still without temperature. The wind wrote lines in the snow. The sled refused to be part of the paragraph. Could have frozen through, Will offered. Cold soaked. Metal always tells a little truth, I said. Even a lie sweats at the edges. Maybe it's not metal, Ruiz said. We all let that sit. I logged the sighting without editorial. 1922, rectangular shape at 50Y on gen path. No apparent tow, thermal neg, monitoring. No one gets yelled at for logging the weather or things that pretend to be equipment. At 20:04, the front door coughed once under gust pressure, and all three of us turned like we shared a neck. I told myself I was not thinking about how neatly that sled had placed itself on the one path a human brain marks as safe. I told myself I was thinking about fuel ratios and radio checks and Will's habit of leaving a good stool in a bad spot. I was thinking about the window. Windows are not for looking at night. That's Rule 3 on paper and law in the marrow. But before midnight, the world still offers you a loophole in the shape of time. The brain says, now is still okay. The brain says, just a quick look with tools. The brain says a lot of things that end with you staring into your own reflection while the dark decides what to do with your curiosity. At 22:10, Ruiz signed off to walk the perimeter, by which she meant she would do exactly half of a walk, and then stand with her back to the safe wall, and listen to what the night had to tell her that she would not repeat. Will pretended to fix a breaker that did not require fixing, and left me alone with the sled on the monitor, and the FLIR humming in my hand like a small animal trying to be brave. I did the HF shutdown drill early and wrote RED bus OK in the margin like a person who believes in rituals. I moved through my checks with the speed of guilt, quick, competent, trying not to leave fingerprints on the hour. 22:43, the sled had shifted by 2 pixels to the left, or I had convinced myself it had. I put a sticky note on the glass of the monitor at the sled's leading edge. The sticky note made the room feel useful. 2251, the sticky note still hugged the same line of pixels, and I felt a triumphant kind of stupid. 2300, I took the fleur to the north hallway window because angles tell truths people don't. The blackout shade there was still up. The glass wore a heavier rime now, no longer ferns but feathers, overlapping, each barb perfect like a thing grown with intent. I held the fleur there and watched the world in orange and black say no heat where a sled squatted like a question you don't want the answer to. Behind the thermal bloom and haze, behind my own reflected silhouette, a government tissue ghost, the feathers in the rime shifted in the pressure difference and arranged themselves into something that looked, for one beat too long, like an iris. Don't be a child, I told my nervous system, and the nervous system responded with a fully signed petition to please leave. 2311, the station did a very small, very polite shudder that only buildings do when they're telling each other secrets through the footers. The sled on the monitor did not acknowledge that a world existed where physics had opinions. 2327, I powered the radio down. LEDs surrendered one after the other. The room made its trust fall and the UPS caught it. 2330, I sat and became furniture. The kind of furniture that watches the hallway window from the corner of its eye because the corner is the part of you Rule 3 forgot to name. The PA did not chime. The wind had a new plan. From the corner where my peripheral vision keeps its pets, I saw movement at the glass. Not outside, on it. Rime shedding itself in lines, tiny avalanches of frost sliding in two directions at once, as if thumbs pressed from the other side were smearing a message they hadn't learned to write. A thin squeal tracked along the pane, microscopic and very loud. I stood before I meant to. The fleur was in my hand because my hand had gone and fetched it without asking me. The window was 3 strides away. I took 2. Rule 3 lives with me now. It doesn't shout. It doesn't have to. It breathed at the back of my neck. Do not look. I froze with one shoulder to the wall beside the pane, eyes on the opposite bulkhead. A child playing a game that doesn't have a winner. The rime squealed a thinner squeal. My hand lifted the fleur like a periscope, and I turned the monocular not outward but inward, using its screen as a reflection, a dark mirror to steal a sliver of what lay beyond without putting my gaze where it doesn't belong. The fleur showed me in bad orange, and the window in a fat stripe of black and the world beyond in a black so honest, it made the screen feel like truth. On that black, pressed right up to the pane, was the rectangle of absence where the sled should have been. But the sled wasn't here. The sled was there 50 yards out, and my brain had not prepared itself for the geometry of a thing that is a hole up close and a shape far away. I shut the fleur off. That didn't turn off the knowledge. Behind me, the radio made a single clean click. Not the HF hiss, not the breath of oceans, the dry switch sound of local. I did not turn. I felt for the paper in my pocket and let my fingers read Rule 3 the way blind people read prayers. Do not look out windows after 0000 regardless of what you hear. It wasn't midnight yet. The loophole yawned like a mouth. The world has a talent for moving the target. The clock read 23:56, 4 minutes of grace, 4 minutes of you could. Somewhere in my skull, a film projector ran frames of the gen path, the sled in pixels, the sled in oranges, the sled as whole. Curiosity is a weather system with better funding than we have. Price. Ruiz's voice came from the corridor, normal quiet, not the kind that smells like somebody else wearing her words. You upright. Here, I said. Window. I'm not looking at it. Smart, she said, and her footfalls moved away down the hall, or a recording of her footfalls did, or the idea of her moving away looked enough like moving away to satisfy the part of me that needed distance from authority to make a mistake all my own. 23:58. The ferns worked themselves into another eye. The center melted the tiniest amount, surface tension pulling frost into a pupil that studied me from a world I refused to join. The human brain will believe a circle is watching it even if the circle is made of nothing but lack. I took a third step, then stopped so hard my ankles argued. I put my palm to the bulkhead, not the glass, and let the cold there close my fist for me like it had parental rights over my hands. 23:59. The sled on the monitor on the desk in the other room decided to be 2 pixels to the right now. Sure you are. I told it under my breath, and my breath fogged the wall, not the glass, because I am a person who knows what surface he is putting his life against. Midnight changed the shape of the air without lowering the temperature. The station did its once per night I am a bell hum that no one talks about outside of places like this. Somewhere deeper than manuals, all the screws decided to remember they were spirals. Rule 3 stopped being a suggestion and became a structure. I stepped back from the window until my shoulder blades found the opposite wall. I did it slow because prey runs. The radio in comms breathed a little hiss and then rested. The PA thought about chiming and didn't. Out at 50 yards, a sled became truer on the monitor by sheer force of being observed. I did not look. The first scratch came delicate as a question mark on the south wall, a test. Metal on metal, not nails and not ice. The second came as if answering the first from the east, a third from the west. The building had hands put on it by a tour. I could map them in my head, each sound a dot on the blueprint we keep in a drawer and in our bones. The scratches were not random. They were a course drawn with care, a slow creep around our perimeter at a human walking pace, stopping at corners the way a person stops where they expect a camera and does a better face. Stay in the corridor, I told myself, and my legs said we like corners, and my spine said we like being against things. It is difficult to keep 3 nervous systems on one leash. The scratches rounded the northwest corner and marched along the wall that backs the comms room, faint at first because sound wraps a building the way cold does, badly with its own map. I could hear it clearer as it came, not the drag of a branch or the skitter of wind-hurled ice. It was purpose, gritted. Every few inches it paused, as if whoever carried the metal had read the rule about Windows too and wanted to make their handwriting legible. The rhyme on the hall window rearranged itself with each pause, feathers running backward, ferns forgetting they were leaves and trying on letters. The nervous part of my brain tried to read. Reading is a reflex you bring from a world with libraries. I took a step toward comms because the sound was louder there now, and because bad decisions are usually trips you convince yourself are walks. The scratching reached the comms wall and slowed. The room beyond my shoulder held still the way a held breath holds a child underwater. The noise tracked along the wall toward the window in that room, the one with the shade drawn, the lighter dark that a person in a chair can pretend is not an invitation. The scratching stopped. Silence did its trick of making time thirsty. Something tapped the glass from outside, once, then again, and the cold through the wall behind my back made itself a promise. The scratching started circling the station, and then it stopped directly under the comms window. The scratching held the building in its hand and then let go. Not all at once, like a person releasing a jar lid, testing if you'll try to open it yourself. Metal remembered being ore and quit complaining. The wind took its turn. I stayed with my back to the corridor wall opposite comms and counted 10 slow breaths, the kind the EMT taught us for when a body was trying to run out of itself. On 8, the PA chimed. 2 notes. Friendly. The sound we used to use for hot trays are out. Get them while they still deserve the name. The room did a small, involuntary flinch the way dogs do when a hand is raised, even for a pat. No one had thumbed the call button. I could see the console through the open door to ops. The green LED that should accompany a live page was not lit. "Chief," I said, just enough volume to belong to a person in a hallway, not to whatever was curious outside the comms window. Ruiz's answer came from the far end level. "Heard it." Her boots approached slow, not to spook the kind of night that spooks back. The PA held its breath. Then soft, domestic, winter in Minnesota, the voice. "Honey, I could have told you what brand of saucepan that vowel belonged to. Stainless, with a lid dented in a move. The way the word rounded at the end like my mother's thumb smoothing foil over leftovers. The corridor narrowed around air. "Honey, I can't find the good flour." The voice tried again as if we'd dropped our call and she was valiantly filling time so I wouldn't worry. That's a thing my mother does. She hobby horses the mundane when the scary is near. She thinks it shields you. "Price," Ruiz said softly, already close enough to be 3 feet to my left without me needing to look. "Breathe." "I'm fine," I said, which is Midwestern for please don't let me try to earn this by opening a door. She didn't touch me. She pointed with her chin toward ops. "Kill switch dance," she said. "You know the board." I knew the board. I could draw it in sleep. The PA/ANN subsystem runs off the audio bus, twin amps/B, with a 24V AUX for the preamps and a feed from the fire control that likes to imagine it outranks us. Each had its own breaker, each its own smug little label made in a dymo when the world was calmer. We stepped into ops together. The fans made their polite hive noise. The PA call button sat there unlit like a kid with clean hands and a cookie missing from the jar. "On my mark," Ruiz said. "You do amp A, I do amp B, then we walk up the tree." The PA chimed again, cheerful, exactly the kind of sound you'd use to keep a toddler from crying while you change a bandage. "Ready?" I said and put my finger on PA-AMPA. "Mark, we killed O and B." The rack dropped a line of hum, the room dropped nothing, the voice came anyway. "Honey, the recipe card says 5 cups, but that can't be right, can it? 5, and then 5 again." The word 5 came as a neat little series of taps under the sweetness like a pencil on a table. 5, pause, 5. My hand found the paper in my pocket. It didn't help my skin. "Go upstream," Ruiz said. 24V aux. I killed 24V AUX. The LED died like it had been waiting for permission. The voice found us with no power to ride. "Evan," Mom said more carefully, testing the new route. "As long as you're up, will you open the—" Ruiz shook her head once. Rule 4 in that gesture. 00000400. Doors are not your friends. "It's past midnight," I said aloud, mostly for me. The PA made a soft click that wasn't electrical. The kind of click you get from plastic pulled by someone who knows where to press. "Next," Ruiz said, "fire annunciator." We killed the tie into the fire ANN backbone. That should have amputated the PA's ability to ride the friendly part of the life safety system. The console stayed unlit. The speaker in the ceiling said, "I have lungs of my own." Okay, I said. We're down to tearing wire or pretending wires matter. Ruiz exhaled through her nose. That's as close as she comes to amen. We pulled the PA rack fuses for the zones 1 through 4. One by one, their little glass bodies came out like organs and went into my palm. Upstairs, the ceiling speaker chuckled. You can't, I started. But it can, Ruiz said. Sometimes the room talks to itself. The PA chimed 2 notes, friendly, then faint under it the taps again, 5, pause, 5. Will, Ruiz called, status, silence from the generator corridor. Will, she repeated, and this time she put Sergeant in it. He answered from the dark beyond ops. Right here, he said, and a flashlight turned the corner slow so we saw the cone first, then the man behind it. I was babysitting the UPS. Heard your mom ask for flour. 10 out of 10 mimicry, Chief. You good? Ruiz asked. Will lifted his free hand, palm up. Good as a man can be at a puppet show. He looked up at the ceiling speaker like it was a wasp nest. You want me to pull the line at J panel? Let's trace first, Ruiz said. No surprises. She handed me the small lockout/tagout kit we use when we have to keep alive machines from getting too ambitious. Kill switch dance is done, she said. Now we waltz. We crossed to the maintenance chase behind ops where the conduits run in polite, labeled bundles. It smells like dust and apologies in there. The PA/ANN conduit is a gray EMT tube with proper grommets and a bend radius that would make a code inspector cry happy. We popped the cover on J panel 3. Inside, wire nuts neat as nuns, a sticker with circuit numbers, a date from a contractor who will never come back. Will held the light. Ruiz used her multi-tool to work a stubborn nut. I watched the condensation drip, except there isn't condensation in a space like this after we've had the HVAC running for months and everything is drier than a joke. The drop hung fat from a wire, caught the flashlight and fell. It spattered on the floor of the chase with a sound I did not enjoy. I knelt and fogged my finger over it, smelled. Salt. Salt, I said. Will closed one eye as if sound would be less true in mono. From where? Ruiz touched the grommet where the conduit enters the panel. A line of white crystals grew there like a child had poured sugar along the seam. Ocean, she said. It's been doing ocean tricks since before you got here. We're 100 miles from salt water, I said. We're 100 miles from a lot of things that get in anyway, Ruiz said. Something in the panel popped, not electrical. The way a blister pops. Another fat bead gathered at the bend. Impossible gravity drawing it up along a thread as if the drop had learned to read stairs backwards. Price, Ruiz said low. Don't get close. I'm not getting close, I lied. We watched Brine make a choice no Brine is supposed to make. It slithered along the jacket, hit a tie wrap, and went around it like a mind-changing lanes. Will's light caught it at the right angle, and every little grain in it sparkled like ground glass. Up in the ceiling, the PA speaker breathed so the cone moved. That soft, almost subsonic shiver a diaphragm does when it's preparing to lie. The chime came quieter, as if the system felt shy about being caught. Then, gentle, the voice. Sweetheart, the door is stuck. It chose door on purpose. Let it sit there in the air like a casserole you bring to a neighbor with grief. We'd killed the amps. We'd killed AUX. We'd cut the rack. We were looking at the wire that should have carried the sound, and the voice was here anyway. Kill the run, Ruiz said to Will, at the closer box. Will nodded and moved to J panel 4 where the conduit ducked up toward the ceiling. He cut one side of the pear with a little snip on his multi-tool, quick and neat. The PA said, "Oh," and then nothing. The ceiling did silence like a dangerous animal standing very still. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in a while. Then the tap came. Not in the speakers now, through the conduit. Tap, 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 pause, tap, 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 tap. We all looked at the gray tube like we could see the idea traveling. "What is that?" Will said, which is a man being polite to an uninvited guest. "Not Morse," I said reflexively. "Too clean. No timing variance. Someone taught it 5 and told it 5 means hello." Ruiz closed the panel and receded the cover. "Tag out the PA," she said. "If it wants to talk, it can eat drywall." We put the little red lockout on the panel latch because it made us feel like citizens. Will wrote out of service in block letters only teachers use well. The salt bead on the conduit seemed swelled, then contracted, then evaporated without vanishing, leaving a line as if it had decided to leave a signature instead of a stain. "Log it," Ruiz said. "I did because writing is how you assert jurisdiction when you can't close a door. 0038 PA activation without power. Voice content familial. Taps 5-5. Brine intrusion in sealed conduit. Salt crystal trace at grommet. Tagged out." I did not write mom. Flower. Door. I didn't trust myself to leave it on the page. "Chief," Will said, "you still want me to pull at the ceiling speaker." "If you can open it without looking out the hall window," she said. "Otherwise, no." He grinned without humor. "I'll do it blind." He fetched the step stool, placed it under the ceiling grill in ops, and climbed. The grill was held by 2 screws that had done this dance before. He loosened them, kept the grill in place with a finger, then eased it aside and reached into the dark. The conduit above should have been dry and dusty. He withdrew his hand, wet to the wrist. "Salt," he said tightly, shaking his hand over a rag. "Warm, warm," I said. The word made my mouth chalky. He held his palm to my nose. Brine and something like metal left out in rain that wasn't rain. Not fish, not mold, ship. "We're not near." I started and shut up because we were near everything according to how Kestrel uses maps. We receded the grill and stepped back down. The PA remained still, a child deciding whether the silence got our attention better than the chime. "Okay," Ruiz said. "We've danced, we've traced. We've learned that water goes uphill and speakers lie. Next test is the door test." "No," I said too fast. "I'm not opening anything," she said. "I'm seeing if anything tries to talk to a latch." We waited. The wind worked. The building reminded itself of who it was. At 0107 from down the crew corridor, a door handle jiggled. Not random panic. A gentle test, 3 quick rattles, then a pause, then the rattles again. "Rule 4, Ruiz said. "Doors don't get to be friends until 4. "Which door?" I asked. "Storage," she said without listening. "People who live here learn the shape of our own handles being disrespected." We walked toward the sound slow. Will kept his hand on the wall because metal is geometry you can trust until you can't. The storage door is a steel thing with a government latch and the kind of padlock the catalog promises will make you feel like a man who secures assets. The tag hung on it from yesterday's inventory check, signed Ruiz/Harker. The handle jiggled. Will lifted the padlock to show it to me. "A little you see we did the right thing." "It loves pretending it's someone you owe," Ruiz said. "That's what the voices are for. You owe family, you owe rank, you owe the people you save." I reached without meaning to, and Ruiz's hand appeared between mine and the lock like sleight of hand. "Nope, I wasn't." "You were," she said kindly. The PA chimed again in ops behind us, far down the hall. 2 notes, friendly. like the station wanted us to know there would be a nice soundtrack while we failed a test. Inside the storage, something scraped, not nails. Boot sole on concrete, a shift, a sigh at the jam. You can hear a man's height in his sigh in a small room. This one matched Will. I hated that I knew that. I looked at Will. He looked back. For a moment we were mirror men. He lifted one shoulder, helpless. The handle jiggled thrice. James, a voice said from behind the door. It wasn't mine. It was a name that belonged to another station, another guy, some story I hadn't been told yet. And then the voice corrected itself the way autocorrect fixes a word you wanted. Evan. Ruiz's jaw moved a millimeter, the way a person chews a different future and chooses not to swallow. The paw, polite as a butler, gave us 5 small ticks and 5 more under the chime. Not opening, Will said. Saying it out loud is a kind of lock. The voice behind the door took a patient breath, then spoke again, and this time there was no mother, no officer, no stranger. Buddy, it said in Will Harker's voice, gentle and lazy and threaded just right with worry. Brakes sticking. Open up. The storage door quit asking. The handle settled. The padlock remembered it was metal and not a favor. We held the corridor like a breath, 3 people arranged by geometry and habit. Ruiz nodded once toward our rooms, barricaded up, and tilted her head down the spine of Kestrel like she could listen between rivets. Then we heard it. Boots on metal, not panic feet, not animal. The steady, rule book cadence of a person who knows the hall. Heels landing where heels are supposed to land on a graded run, and then the flat of the plate floor. A weight you'd sign for. Main doors locked, Will whispered. Everything is, Ruiz said. The boots didn't care. They took the turn from the north vestibule as if they had a map drawn in their bones. 10 paces. A small pause where the sight line opens into ops. 6 more. The kind of rhythm you get from people trained to check corners without being dramatic about it. The corridor warmed the way memory warms you when a song you didn't ask for plays. Then the air went cold in a place no duct could justify. I saw my breath, thin steam ribbons in the heated hall. The hot water loop hasn't failed once this month. We pay for our heat in diesel and guilt. Price, Ruiz said, not to me but to the rules. What's Rule 5? If someone calls your name from outside and then comes inside, hide. Do not come out until morning. Hide, I said, till morning. Go, she said, pick a hole and make it church. Will quarters now. He nodded, gave me a face that said come back stupid, and peeled away down the crew wing, soft feet in big boots. Chief, I started. I'm not your Brave movie, she said. I'm a door with furniture behind it. The boots came closer. The shadow they made moved ahead of them, a red fused smudge sliding along the wall. I slipped into comms because comms has the only hidey hole that doesn't feel like a confession. The desk with the false back panel, and the chair you can kick into the aisle like an argument. I shut the door most of the way. Not all. Doors that are all the way shut make noise when they open. Doors that are ajar have to decide to be dramatic. The room was warm from equipment shoulder heat. The blackout shade made the window into a rectangle of friendly dark. The radio was quiet by the grace of a rule, and whatever understands rules when we say them out loud. I slid under the desk. It's a government desk. Open knee-well front, thin metal modesty panel at shin height. Cross brace you can tuck behind if you know the geometry. I went in sideways, hauled my knees up, turned my boots toe out so the soles wouldn't broadcast me on the tile. The headset coil lay on the floor like a small snake that believed in me. I tapped the chair with my heel and let it roll into the aisle, screen between me and a body. I pressed my back to the cabinet wall. The panel was warm at my spine. The air in the knee well was cold, humming a little Hail Mary into my ribs. The corridor got quiet. Quiet has a sound, so does looking. Price. Ruiz's voice came from the hallway, just loud enough to be courteous, exact rasp. She sands her R's into something Boston forgot at the docks. It was all there. Here, I almost said, because obedience is a reflex and reflex is how you die. Her shadow fell across the threshold. The door hinges did not complain. The boots entered. Regulation. USC standard issue. The black had gone salt gray at the toe caps from months of cramped stairs. The right boot had a nick on the welt where someone dropped a breaker cover last week and said, "My bad, chief." There's a way polish sits in seams after a lazy shine. This had that. The boot stopped dead center in the aisle. A weight settled. The chair I'd rolled into the open creaked and then skittered a few inches as if pushed with a calf. The desk above me took some of the force and translated it into metal talk. "Price," Ruiz's voice said, "back here." I didn't move. Paper whispered on the desktop. A pen shifted in the little tray. The drawer breathed and closed, hands patting like a parent looking for scissors. Something exhaled. I saw a cloud of breath drift down under the desk edge and move against the warm air like smoke finding a cold window. It hung at knee height, too low for a mouth. Then it split, two little eddies twinning at my boot toes and pulling back like tide. "Breathe quiet," I told my lungs. They did their best to impersonate pipes. The boots pivoted. A shin clipped the chair and sent it into the file cabinet. The cabinet rocked and then went over, drawers slamming out in a tantrum of metal, contents coughing into the aisle, plastic sleeves, map rolls, the laminated incident template I'd practiced lying into. The crash hit the room like a shout. The floor took it and told the walls. "Chief." I heard my own voice from last week inside my head asking about the rules. Reflexes are recordings. The night looks for the play button. "Price," Ruiz's voice said, closer to the floor now. The boot stepped deliberately around paper toward the desk, slow like a person doing bedside. "Come on, it's me, say it." Her fingers appeared at the edge of the knee well, just the tips at first, nails blunt, one cuticle torn from a dry day with boxes, a tiny crescent scar across the first knuckle from a multi-tool bite, all the proofs you think you need. The skin held the same winter cracks that live in all of us. The fingers curled under the lip, testing space and physics. I pulled my toes back from the reach on instinct and then told my feet to be furniture. "Evan," the voice gentled. She uses Price for work and Evan for being human. It used Evan now like a hand on your hairline. "Look at me." Rule 5 moved through me like a cold front. If it comes in, you hide. You do not come out until morning, no matter what. I pressed my forearms around my legs and made a shape a person can't easily pull apart without lifting a desk. I could hear the UPS on the rack do its low, righteous hum. It's the sound you get when batteries believe in something. "Where are you?" Ruiz asked the room, not the air, and then she coughed, that little one-note rasp she's had since January when the dry air made her throat into parchment. The sound lived in my ear canal like memory. If it was Ruiz, she wouldn't be in here without making the hallway safe first. If it was Ruiz, the heat wouldn't be evacuating the room around her like sugar drawn to ants. The boots made a careful quarter turn and went slow to the comms window. The blackout shade trembled at the edges like paper deciding if it's going to remember it used to be a tree. I stared at the underside of the desk until the wood grain became roads. A thumb tapped the window once from inside the room. Then the knuckle tapped the sill, defining corners, measuring. If it pulled the shade, I would have to not look, and not looking is harder when the night insists on framing a picture for you. The thumb didn't rise. The boots pivoted again. The room's warmth fled another inch. Fog formed under the desk, thin veils of cold breath that weren't mine. They slid over my shins and pooled against the cabinet wall, hanging like prayers. I didn't scratch my knee when a paperclip found it. I didn't swallow loud when spit was suddenly complicated. "Look," Ruiz's voice said, at me. The patience in it was almost a moral argument. She can do that, make a procedure sound like a kindness. Something above sat on the desk. The metal frame creaked. Dust came down in polite glitter through the screw holes. Weight shifted. The desk gave old man complaints but held. The boots disappeared from my little angle. I saw only the hem of the uniform pants, a crease done by a person who irons even when the world doesn't deserve it. From the top of the desk, drag, paper pushed. The laminated rules card slid to the edge, thought about falling, reconsidered. Something tapped the laminate with a fingernail, light, almost pleased. "Do you know why we laminate it?" The voice asked, conversational, like briefing a rookie. "So it doesn't tear when you need it." A pause. "Give it to me." It was fishing. I know a fishing voice when I hear it. My mother uses one when she needs me to admit about denting the car in high school. Except my mother isn't here, and this wasn't my mother, and Rule 5 said no. The boots returned to my angle. The knee bent. The uniform sank toward the floor on the other side of the desk lip. I watched the darkness between the boots for familiar sin. There wasn't any. It was too clean where dirt should live. Kestrel lives in a scratch map of salt and oil. The space between these soles had perfect floor, like the room had been replaced up to the ankles. The hand came down into my field of view, palm first on the tile. Fingers spread as if measuring, the scar I knew, the mole near the wrist, the callus under the ring finger from weapons qualls, a cartographer's list of reasons to trust. It hovered there and then tilted, fingertips seeking the blind interior. The air went one more degree of wrong. "Price," the voice said, and put muscle into my name like leash pressure. "Come on." The hand inched forward until the nails touched the lip. The middle finger found the metal strip and began to tap. Tap, 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 tap. A pause long enough for a grin. Tap, 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 tap. Morning at Kestrel isn't sunrise. It's a ceasefire. The dark turns from active to indifferent, and the building remembers how to be a building. I unnodded from under the desk when my watch said 06:31, and the room's warmth came back all at once, like someone returned my blood. The filing cabinet lay on its side, drawers yawned. Paper had drifted into the aisle, incident templates, wind maps, the laminated rules card I'd felt with my thumb all night. No breath fog now, no tapping. Ruiz knocked our agreed-upon pattern on the comms jam, 2 knocks, pause, 1, something a mimic never bothers to get right, and pushed the door with her shoulder. Will hovered behind her, hair in stubborn spirals, eyes puffy with the kind of sleep you do inside your skeleton. "You alive?" Ruiz asked. "Present," I said, voice gravel. I got to my feet and everything I owned filed a complaint. We did the morning ritual, 3 questions to each other to catch a wrong cadence. Favorite MRE, hometown street, what color the galley mug with the chip is. Answers came easy. The kind of easy that feels like grace. Ruiz took in the room with a single nod that meant we'll make it orderly before we make it okay. "Coffee," she said, then fiction. The galley smelled like confidence in a pot. Will poured diesel-thick coffee into chipped white and slid me the chipped mug without asking because he has hands that know where things belong. Ruiz opened the incident report template on the ops laptop. Subject line prefilled the way bureaucracy likes its meals. Equipment malfunction after hours. The form had slots for time, affected systems, suspected cause, corrective action, and a free text box no one free ever gets to read. Ruiz spoke. I typed. The words wore their uniforms. 001204, 16Z comms subsystem exhibited autonomous activation after manual shutdown per SOP. Operator complied with standing night protocol. Thermal variance observed in comms/ops corridors, condensation in heated space. PA/ANN experienced intermittent unsolicited activation. Zone LEDs unlit, fuses tagged out, audio present independent of power path. Trace salt crystal residue at J-panel 3 grommet, suspected salt aerosol intrusion in conduit. No bulk water on follow-up. Crew storage handle agitation, no breach, locks intact. Corrective action, isolated PA zones, LODO in place. Visual inspection of wiring chases. Gen shed nominal. Increased monitoring recommended during extended darkness period. Suspected cause, pressure anomaly. Pressure anomaly, I said more to the room than to her. We're calling it that. We've always called it that, Ruiz said, soft and thinly amused. The word works. It makes someone in Juno sign the thing instead of forwarding us to a doctor. It's a lie. It's a door that opens, she said. The truth gets you a closed one. Will leaned on the counter, mug in both hands. We're not the first to file it in that dialect, he said, and the right people read between the nouns. Which right people? I asked. The ones who keep sending us here, Ruiz said. We let the ethics sit down at the table with us. They took up room and didn't apologize. Out here, omission is not always the same as cowardice. Sometimes it's surgery. You cut the truth down to what the institution can survive and then hope the rest of the patient heals on its own. Log the PA salt, Ruiz said, and the brine going uphill. I want that on record. Don't write uphill. Write movement inconsistent with gravity. I typed it the way she said it. The keyboard felt complicit and warm. Mic check, Will said suddenly. Your desk mic took a hit when the cabinet went over. We went back to comms. The gooseneck mic on the console had a flat spot on the grill where something heavy had kissed it. The VU ladder, the little row of green to red LEDs, had frozen at red when the power came back on at 05:40, like it had been pegged all night. I cued the overnight room recorder because of course we had one. A little black box that grabs a rolling buffer in case we need to prove we weren't asleep. The file list had a 12-minute segment flagged high level at 02:13Z. I opened it. The waveform looked like a brick, peak solid at the ceiling. -0. 1 dBFS kissed across 12 minutes of anger, red hot. Any audio engineer would tell you someone screamed right into that mic until it tasted blood. I hit play. Silence. Not hiss, not room tone, the kind of silence that eats the bit depth. The spectrogram was a field of black with a neat white border where the software thought it should be busy and wasn't. Levels are maxed, I said, but there's no sound. Seen it before, Will murmured. What does it mean? That the station screamed into our meter and not our ears, Ruiz said, or that it takes sound away when it wants it more than we do. I scrubbed the file. 12 minutes of nothing that looked like everything. The last second resolved into a slider of gray, the recorder coming back to itself, as if a hand had been over its mouth and then was not. Save, Ruiz said. Then don't send. We keep that in the drawer where truth doesn't get anyone fired. That feels like the wrong drawer, I said. Pick your wrongs, she said, and her mouth did the almost smile that belongs to people who have learned to live next to their convictions without marrying them. We cataloged the physicals. Will took macro photos of the salt trace at the grommet. The line had dried to a pale, seemed like someone had signed their name and left. The rime ferns on the north window had gone back to generic frost with no iris, no letters, only the story of wind on glass written in a different alphabet. I righted the filing cabinet. It fought dignity in front of others the way furniture does. We slid drawers back into their mouths and let the room pretend it hadn't shouted. Ruiz read the report one more time out loud, the way supervisors do when they need your language to take a shape you both can own. Autonomous activation, she read. Thermal variance, pressure anomaly. When did you decide to speak like this? I asked. When I learned the other way got people transferred to couches with clipboards, she said, and because someone who's never worked a night here will forward our report to facilities and facilities will tell us to check the breaker. So we write the breaker checks in. So the man with the checklist knows he's been seen. And the thing that knows my mother's voice, I asked. We don't write mothers in, she said. We write systems, even when the system has teeth. She sent the report up the satellite pipe. A thin green progress bar that never feels like it's moving until it's done. The subject line went out into a sky busy with other people's business. When the bar reached the end and the software gave us the little happy chime that means someone else's desk will now get to ignore us, the building sighed. Food, Will announced, because we have to do that sometimes or the day doesn't remember its day. He fried 2 eggs with the reverence of a priest lighting candles. We ate like animals that had written a report about being animals. The inbox on the ops laptop sat in the corner, little satellite icon with a red number on it that meant queued things would become here things once the dish decided Alaska wasn't a rumor. The number was 3. Weather had been stingy last night. Ruiz went to the window and opened the shade the way you open a curtain in a house that hadn't been yours long enough to trust. A rectangle of slate light came in, a morning that belonged to someone else but was willing to rent. I hate how pretty this place is right now, Will said. It's bait, Ruiz said. We cleaned, we claimed. We made Kestrel earn its keep in the day shift. At 11:06, the dish found the bird and the burst queue emptied. The inbox icon popped from 3 to 0, then back to 1. Mail, I said unnecessarily. Ruiz slid in front of the keyboard. She always opens admin first. Admin had the usual, a weather update, a 3-sentence note from a man who signs with too many letters after his name and never uses a first, a reminder about diesel rationing. Then there was a 4th, from S. Burst at Kestrel, Usk, Mill, subject voice log attachment auto. Date 3 weeks ago. Attach voice log 0039 OG 12 4 MB 3 weeks, Will said, out of order. Queuing glitch, Ruiz said automatically, but her posture said no. Open it, I said. She double-clicked. The player skinned itself in polite gray and drew a waveform that looked like a conversation. Not brick loud like the night file, this had rises and falls, breaths. The metadata in the corner printed recorded. 0217Z 21 days. The operator field read E, price. That's Will started. I wasn't here 3 weeks ago, I said. My mouth knew how to be dry when coffee failed. Ruiz turned the volume knob down and then back up like superstition could sweeten the sound. She hit play. A small room breathed. A chair creaked. A man cleared his throat in my pattern, 2 quick hums and a swallow. Then my voice. Not a recording I recognized, not a training check, not some archive. My voice said into Kestrel's morning, "It's me. If you're hearing this, do not open the door." The file with my voice, that I hadn't recorded 3 weeks before I arrived, sat in the ops inbox like a dare. We listened once. We didn't finish. Ruiz reached across me and stopped the player with a single knuckle as if she were pressing a bruise. "Okay," she said, voice level. "We're done keeping souvenirs." She slid the laminated sheet onto the desk, uncapped a black Sharpie, and wrote under the 5 rules with a mechanic's care. 6. Never keep any recording from night past 06:15. Purge them. All devices, all caches, no exceptions. Will squinted. Why 06:15? Because it's later than 6, Ruiz said, and earlier than mistakes. She met my eyes. We gave the night a mouth. We're not giving it memory. I wanted to argue for evidence, for proof, for the kind of audio you could shove at someone with rank and the right last name. I pictured an 05 in Juno hearing the nothing that looked like everything. Then I pictured the voice in our inbox wearing my vowels like my mother's sweater. My mouth closed. "Purge job," Ruiz said. "Tonight and every night. 06:15, not 06:16. If you have to pick between backup discipline and church, pick church. We won't win this with artifacts." "Copy," I said. The station thrummed its indifferent daylight hum. Kestrel is always calm when the paperwork is violent. We were granted a window. Forecast said a dip in the MAD from 16:40 to 17:15. Wind easing to the kind where you can stand without leaning hard. The gen shed had been throwing polite tantrums on Will's panel since morning. Fuel temp drift. A belt that wanted to be a new belt. A battery heater that believed in summer. "No one volunteers for this one," Will said, forcing cheer into his buckle checks. "But my name's already on the toolbox." He snapped his harness D-ring into the line runner clipped to the tether, a taut guy line from the station's lee-side cleat to the shed's anchor bollard, 37 yards of nylon-wrapped steel the color of old teeth. "Buddy system," Ruiz said, handing him the tug code card. 1 tug okay, 2 stop, 3 come back, a long one I'm coming to you. The card was laminated too. We laminate our promises because paper fails when hands shake. "I can go as second," I said. "You can be anchor," Ruiz said. "Inside, at the belay, you're new, Will knows the shed's moods. And I want your eyes on the cams and your hand on the line. 2 of us outside is a bigger offering." Offering, she didn't say target. We suited Will like a small astronaut. Balaclava, goggles, helmet cam with an elastic strap, and a battery pocket stomp taped to his collar to keep it warm. Chem lights clipped to harness chest and back for when the world quit being a world. A rescue whistle for the quixotic moment when wind might care. He slung the tool roll across his torso like bandolier and checked the GoPro feed on the ops monitor. It came up clean. A narrow fisheye of corridor, boots, us. The frame occasionally grabbed the red LED on the harness chest ring and turned it into a tiny beating sun. "Hot mic," Will said. "Price, you'll have my sound. If I go quiet, grab the line and sing to me." "Sing what?" "Take me out to the ball game. I hate that song. I'll run back to make you stop." The wind leaned a shoulder against the north door like an old friend. The anemometer dipped from angrier to merely angry. Our window opened. Ruiz worked the bolts, cracked the vestibule, and let the station sniff the outside. Fine spindrift slithered across the threshold and wrote tiny cursive in the diamond plate, calligraphy that promised wheels would skate here later. She opened the outer door and the world became static and white. Last light, she said. The sky at 1642 had decided on schizo twilight, a sideways blue where the horizon should be and brightness pouring from nowhere in particular. It made the drift look lit from inside. The gen shed was a gray smudge with ambitions of being a building. The tether line sang. Will clipped his runner to the line and leaned into the wind like a man asking his opponent to dance. The runner slid. The Prusik hitch above it would catch if it had to. The chem light on his back drew a short green comet. He looked back once for the photograph we weren't taking, then went. On him, Ruiz said. I planted my boots against the base of the belay cleat, took 2 wraps of the tether across my hips and made a human break. The line carried Will's decisions into my bones. You can tell a man's mood by how he pulls. These were competent, focused tugs that ignored fear by giving it jobs. The helmet cam gave us snow and breath and plastic. Will's mic carried wind and will. Runner's smooth, he said. Spindrift shallow. I can see 3 markers ahead. Okay. Okay. I am a genius at walking. I should get a medal. Copy, I said, because the military loves the sound of copy, even if it's a man agreeing with his own feet. At 8 yards, the wind gave up being merely air and went back to being a plan. It hit the mic like a palm, and the world became a long, modem dial tone under static, rising and falling, a mournful 1999 trying to find the internet. You hear that? Will said. I hear wind, I lied, because naming things gives them property rights. The laugh came a second later. It rode the same rail the dial-up had, spitting chirps and burbles like a bad handshake between machines. Price, Will said, tell me you're whistling R2D2. You're fine, I said. Stay on the line. On the line, he repeated, and the phrase calmed his boots. A gust took him sideways. The tether drew a diagonal through the white and snapped tight. Will laughed once, real this time, and the laugh vanished out of the mic with a little suck as if someone took it. Runners catching. 1 more marker. 2 more. Okay. I've got the shed. The gen shed door has the kind of handle designed by men who never wore gloves. Will banged it with the meat of his glove until it consented. The cam hit dark, then beam as he flicked his headlamp. Walls, the Onan's green bulk, a calendar that stopped in a month that felt like a joke, a plastic parka someone hung here in the belief it made the room less alone. Temps, I said. Fuel at 38F, belts fraying, battery heaters taking every excuse not to be helpful. He grunted as he leaned in. Listen to you. You think you're mysterious. You're a belt. We kept the line across my hips and ran our dumb chatter for the log, that we would burn at 06:15, because sometimes a man needs the sound of his own cowardice to stay between him and something smarter. Will worked fast, the way a man does when the window on your weather shrinks. He swapped a belt with that panicked patience mechanics learn in hangars, tightened a grudgeful bracket, jiggled a connector he would never admit to jiggling, then slapped the heater housing with a familiarity that could get him written up on a different continent. Okay, he said finally, breath fogging the air. Shed's good enough, coming home. The headlamp hit the floor. Puddled brine at the threshold reflected it back like a little moon. Will, I said, stand by. Standing. Is the floor wet? It's Alaska, he said, but his voice moved down a half step. He touched a gloved knuckle to the puddle and salt shined on it like powdered glass. Ocean, he said softly. How'd you get in here, sweetheart? The laugh came from outside again, farther off now, modulating as if the wind were scrubbing the highs and leaving the lows, a glitching, off-brand Santa. On the line, Ruiz said in his ear, her voice iron, "Home." On the line, he repeated and shut the shed door with more gratefulness than a door has earned in its life. He clipped back in and leaned into the wind. The first step was easy. The second wasn't. The tether went slack for a heartbeat, then came tight with a jerk that felt wrong. Not opposition, encouragement, like someone on the far end had taken the line in two hands and decided to help. My gloves tightened at the cleat. "No thanks," I said to the world. "We're good solo." Will's boots did the smart thing, sat into the harness, made the line carry him. The runner sang. The helmet cam made the whiteout feel like it had hired an artist to do lighting design. Chem light bled in his periphery like a wound. "Price," Will said, "you're not on the line with me, right?" "I'm a wall," I said, "inside. I feel," he stopped. "Copy, moving." The laugh crouched into human for a split second and tried my intonation. "Copy," it said in my voice, shredded into pieces by the storm. Then it pitched itself back to modem and went up 2 octaves, manic and pleased. Ruiz put a boot into the base of the belay beside me and held a second rap without being asked. "Don't listen for it," she said. "Listen for your feet." Will moved, marker, marker. The line over my hips told me each decision a quarter second before it happened. At 15 yards, the white got personal. It stopped being weather and became static at eye level. The cam chewed it into noise. The chem light vanished, reappeared, vanished. The runner's carabiner shrieks have languages. This one spoke friction but not panic. "Okay," Will said. "Okay, I can't see the anchor. I got 2 tugs I didn't make." I gave him 2 back, careful and slow. "Stop." We stood still together with steel and obedience between us, 3 bodies in different rooms making one shape. "Square your hips," Ruiz said. "Face the line, take a breath like a liar, walk your hands toward us. Don't think about walking your feet." He did. I felt his hands thinking through the tether. The line came across my palms with that tidy hum nylon does when it's sure of itself. The laugh moved right and then left, Doppler in a storm. It idled near the gen shed for a beat that was too long to be accident. "Almost home," I said. "Say it again," Will said, and that's how I learned some words are rope. "Almost home," I said, and Will took the last 3 steps like a man leaving a confessional. He hit the vestibule, banged the inner door with his hip, and then he was inside, covered in a lie called snow. He unclipped, stomped, and did a little dance meant to get blood back into feet. "I am never doing that again," he said, and meant until next time. Ruiz unbuckled him with the briskness of a nurse in a war ward, pushing his hands away when they tried to help. "Helmet off," she said. "We'll look for belt slap and things I hate." He unstrapped the GoPro, handed me the hot plastic square, and went to thaw over the vent like a dog finding the only son in the room. I popped the micro SD, slotted it into the reader, and watched the file populate on the ops monitor, Gopper 0041. MP4 1708 min. We scrubbed the first minute, the white and the laugh and the long cyclone of not seeing. The shed green engine block belt swap, the little moon of salt water at his boots. The walk back white, the chem light pulse, static as a texture you could wear. "Freeze there," Ruiz said. I stopped the slider where Will's headlamp made a carnival out of snow. Something darker than dark lived in the corner of the frame, a negative that the algorithm tried to call shadow and failed. "Back a half second, forward a half," she said, and I did. The dark refused to be average. We rolled another few seconds. The camera jerked as the line tugged helpfully. The right edge caught a shoulder where there should be no shoulder, too close, too still, parallel to Will's. I scrubbed with tiny circles. The shape came up the way bruises do, slowly becoming exactly what it is. It was a man, my height, my jacket, the white tape I'd put on my sleeve for a tear I'd promised to fix. He walked in lockstep on Will's left where the tether line ran. No tether on him, no clip, no chemistry light. He existed where the snow refused to exist. I didn't breathe. "Stop," Ruiz said, and her voice lost a story or gained one. The figure turned his head, and the lens caught just enough of a face to teach me something about mirrors. You don't know how much you hate them until they are wrong. My mouth, my nose, the little crescent scar on my left eyebrow from a dock plate in Duluth. His eyes were missing in a way that said they were not gone. They were busy doing a job I didn't want named. "Price," Will said behind us, voice small in a big room. "You were here with me." I was a wall with both hands still on the line, anchor burns already forming under the glove leather. On the screen, the not me moved closer to Will until the helmet cam caught fabric. The same faded Uska hoodie I was wearing now. Then the camera sledded past, the figure dropping out of frame like a secret you keep from yourself. The audio popped, clack, and my voice said from the snow, clean and local and exactly right. "Copy, almost home." I hit pause, no one spoke. The wind did. The ops clock read 17:19. The sky outside the galley window had decided to turn black in a way that had opinions about what we were going to do tonight. Ruiz reached for the laminated sheet and drew a line under Rule 6 with the Sharpie, making the ink shine like wet. "Purge at 06:15, she read aloud. "But not before we teach ourselves what not to hear." On the monitor, the frame glowed with the last moment of me I hadn't lived. The red dot blinked bottom right, polite as a tail light. "Price," Will said, not looking away. "You didn't come outside." "No," I said. We watched the screen like it might look away first. We watched the frozen frame of not me on Will's helmet cam until the room started inventing movement just to see if we'd blink first. The red record LED pulsed at the bottom, right like a polite heart monitor. Outside, the light slid off the world and the world pretended to slide with it. Ruiz uncapped the Sharpie again and wrote under Rule 6 in block letters that do not apologize. 7. Anything left outside overnight isn't yours anymore. Do not bring it in. No exceptions, not gear, not tools, not keepsakes. We'll try to joke that bruised itself on the way out, even if it has my name on it. Especially then, Ruiz said, "That's bait with a ribbon." He patted his pockets and came up one habit short. "My Leatherman." He checked again faster. "I had it at the shed. I used the bit driver on the heater cover." "Inside pocket," I said, willing it into being. He turned his jacket inside out like a man looking for a different outcome in a familiar trick. "Nothing. Sill of the door," he said, remembering and hating remembering. "I set it down to slap that bracket." Yeah. "Daylight," Ruiz said. "If it's still there at dawn, it isn't." "Chief." "Let it go, Harker," she said, not unkind. "Or it won't let go of you." He shut his mouth the way you shut a drawer on your fingers and pretend you meant to. At 22:17, the PA did the cheerful two-note chime, the kind you forgive because it used to mean food. We were in ops, the blackout shades up because it wasn't midnight yet, and we were pretending windows were still inventions for harmless things. "Locked out and tagged," I said to the ceiling. The ceiling chimed again to let me know my paperwork meant nothing to a voice that didn't need wire. Then Ruiz said, "Price," from the PA in a tone sanded by Boston and tempered by Alaska. And Ruiz said, Evan. From the PA with the exact same tone, half a beat off overlapping like a song with 2 takes left in by a lazy mixer. I turned to the console because you turn to the thing you know how to fix. Zone LEDs dark, call button unpressed, the NB amps still sleeping in their tagged coffins, no microphone to scold. Chief, I said, not to the PA, to Ruiz, who stood 5 feet from me and had her hands where I could see them. She lifted her chin a millimeter. On me, she said, as in I'm the reference. The PA had the grace to let a second of calm find us, then both Ruizes spoke at once. Price, bring the report up. Evan, check the door. The phrases overlapped and interfered, cadence on cadence, one turning into echo for the other, then switching roles. If you've ever heard someone speak in a stairwell and then heard them again a half step behind, it felt like that, except the stairwell was our ceiling and the repeat was smarter than the first take. Identity check, Ruiz said crisply. Standard 3. MRE. I asked the room, immediately hating the instinct to cooperate. Chili Mac, both PA Ruizes said with the small wince of a person who has lived with their choice. Hometown Street. Burgeon, said the one on the left of my skull. Burgeon, said the one on the right. First thing you said to me day one, I asked, reaching for specificity like it was a coat in a storm. Real Ruiz's mouth bent into what might have been a smile on a kinder continent. Isolation is the least of your worries here, kid, she said low for me, as memory not proof. The PA said, both voices layered and in tune, isolation is the least of your worries here, kid. Enjoy the peace while it lasts. Will made a noise in his throat like a small engine trying to turn over. Scar check, I said before my better sense caught up. I turned to Ruiz and she obediently showed me the slice across the first knuckle, the bitten thumb, the tiny white fleck near the wrist bone that we've gotten used to seeing when she points at things. I've had these longer than you've known me, she said. They're not passwords. The corridor light shifted like a body had stepped into it out of habit. We all kept our eyes on the room we were in. The PA took a breath the way a diaphragm does before a long note. Price, one PA Ruiz said, patient. Bring me the rule card. I want to add a 7. Evan, the other said just as patient. Bring me the rule card. I want to add a 7. They used the same phrasing and then, half a beat late, repeated each other's imperfections. The tiny rasp, the near smile, the fractional swallow before 7. The mimicry wasn't mirroring, it was mixing. Coin, Ruiz said under her breath. Chief. She fished in her hoodie pocket and produced her challenge coin, Coast Guard crest on one side, cutter on the other. A shallow scratch through the eagle from some night that had not made it into any report. Random breaks patterns, she said. If they can't read the future, they can't read a coin. I wasn't sure I believed in the physics of that sentence, but the part of me that worships procedure loves any sentence that starts with random and ends with can't. She flipped it once in her palm, caught it, turned it over so only she could see, then snapped it to the table with a sound you believe before you know the result. Heads, one PA Ruiz said. Tails, the other said. I looked at the coin. Heads stared back, the eagle bisected by the scratch we know. Real Ruiz's eyebrows rose half the width of a hair. Call and response, she said, not crediting either voice. Again, Will said too loud. Do it again. She flipped, caught, slapped. Heads, said one. Heads, said the other, late by a heartbeat, correcting. The coin showed tails. Tell me a story, I said to the PA. Both voices obliged together with the storage we keep for context. Salt at the grommet, brine moving uphill, the tap pattern 5 and 5. They recited last night like they'd been on our side of the door and did not need to press their ears against it. "Turn it off," Will said to the ceiling. "You're not helping." The PA sighed in two notes, the kind of sigh a parent does when you insist the vegetables don't count because they touched meat. "Rule 4, say it," Ruiz told us both. Above us, the PA Ruizes said it with us, like a choir. "Do not open any door 00000400 regardless of the voice or rank." Words help until they don't. We killed lights in ops and moved into the corridor because a dark room makes your eyes stop lying. The air had that faint wrong cold that is not a number HVAC knows. It didn't fog, but it asked to. The PA kept talking. Sometimes one Ruiz, sometimes the other, sometimes both. Layered so close the syllables bit each other's tails. They told us to check the door. They told us to bring the report up. They told us to add a 7. "Already did," Will muttered. Ruiz pinched the bridge of her nose and spoke to the air like it could read posture. "You don't get to push your way into our paper," she said. "We choose what gets written." The PA stilled. Somewhere down the crew wing, a door handle did a polite jiggle and quit. Rule 4 looked at me from the inside like a parent at a window, not waving, just staring and reminding me I was raised. "Back to comms," Ruiz said. "We live there till dawn. Harker, you take the corridor bench, Price under the desk if it comes in." We stacked furniture in front of the doors like a ritual, not because it would stop anything we've ever met, but because rituals give you back parts of your brain. The UPS hummed. The radio slept with one eye open. The rules lay on the desk where my thumb could find them without looking. At 0003, the PA did something new. It split into zones, one in ops, one in galley, calling in two Ruizes that weren't trying to match anymore. One talked like she does when she's soothing a junior tech down from the ladder. The other talked like she does when someone from Juno calls and wants a favor without paperwork. "Evan, on the left. Price, on the right. Don't answer," Real Ruiz said, and we didn't. "Are you copying this, Harker?" Left asked. "Log it, log it, log it," Right said, almost singing. Will's hands were flat on his thighs. His leg bounced anyway. At 0019, both voices went quiet as if someone off mic had raised a hand. The vent over the comms door breathed once in a hot little gust, then settled. "Hide," Ruiz said softly to me, as if Rule 5 had just typed itself in the air. "Even if it doesn't come in, practice makes survival." I slid under the desk. The metal remembered my shape and my back remembered the hum and decided to harmonize. Paper shuffled overhead, the rules card moving an inch without fingers. I taped them to the desk's underside with gaffer weeks ago. The tape held. In the corridor, Will did the long exhale of a man trying to persuade his own heart of an argument. Not me had walked him home. Not me had my jacket. Not me had said copy in my voice. There's only so much you can ask a man to ignore in one winter. "Chief," he said very quietly, "you'll tell me if I'm not me, right? I will staple your personnel file to my wall if I have to." Ruiz said. It was comfort. It sounded like a threat because everything kind does out here. At 0041, the PA came back, not a Ruiz now. Will, from some recording night I didn't remember granting it. His voice, same lazy humor, same warmth when he's lying about being fine. "Buddy," it said to me, "come on, help me with something." "We don't answer," Ruiz said, even when the voices put names on their hooks. I left my Leatherman. The PA Will continued, almost laughing at his own carelessness, the way he does when something small goes wrong around larger wrongs. "It's freezing. I need it. Open up. We'd cleaned his jacket and boots. We'd heated air through a night that didn't care. We'd added a Rule 7 for exactly this. The knock came at the main door before any of us could conjure a thought. Not a hand, metal on metal. A brisk, hollow, smart sound. Tick, 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 tick. Pause. Tick, 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 tick. 5-5. It hit at handle height, not shoulder. It found the sweet spot where the door skin rings. "Don't move," Ruiz said, and the order put cement in my boots under the desk. The knock came again, a little proud of its rhythm. Then Will's voice, not PA now, outside the door where air that is not our air lives, perfect and too close. "Guys, it's cold as hell. Let me grab it, please." I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth hard enough to bruise. The rules under the desk felt like a talisman and a cuff at once. The knock became a rattle, metal tapping the hasp. The little thumb Leatherman people flip when they are thinking, this time in exact sync with Will's fidget rhythm. He always does 3 quick snaps when he's doing math. It did 3. Evan. The voice outside softened just enough to find the Minnesota in my name. Just the tool, open and close, 2 seconds. Rule 4 put a hand on my head and pressed me closer to the floor. 00000400. Doors are not your friends. The tool, or the thing that had learned the tool, banged on the skin of the door the way a person bangs with the flat of a knife to demand a chef's attention. It banged again, faster, pleading in metal. "Please," Will's voice said, muffled by an inch of door and bottomless otherness. There was a smile in it. You don't hear smiles, you feel them. That's why they are dangerous. We stayed very, very still. The multi-tool kept begging to be let in. Morning made its usual weak promise and kept just enough of it that we pretended to be people. We did the purge at 06:15 like we'd written in Sharpie. Night files shredded, caches emptied, GoPro clip burned to a drive that would live in a bag that would live in a drawer we didn't label. Will held his Leatherman problem in his jaw like a tooth that knew the dentist's name. Ruiz taped Rule 7 to every door we used, as if we could staple wisdom to steel. By late morning, the station settled into its daylight hum, equal parts diesel and bureaucracy. I ran the network checks, NTP sync green from the dish, GPS pulse per second happy, the wall clock over ops proud of its Zulu. Out here you live by Z even when your bones keep local. Every hour we say it out loud to hear who we belong to. 1500 Zulu. Someone will call, and the others echo it back like grace. At 12:07 local, I took a mug off the warmer and forgot it in the crew wing because we'll needed a second set of hands on a breaker cover, then a third because the screws believed in eternity. We got the panel to stop performing grievances, and I came back to ops at 12:31. The mug sat where I'd left it on the ops desk. I picked it up, ready for the sad temperature of 12 minutes wasted. It was hot. Not quite cold hot. Fresh. "I just turned the plate off," Ruiz said from the doorway without looking up from her incident inbox. She tapped the switch with a finger. OFF scowled back. "Coffee doesn't care." "Time does," I said. "Time cares most," she said. She rubbed her temple and gestured at the wall clock. "Zulu. 2331Z," I read, and my mouth kept moving without my permission, the way your feet keep a path you don't want. Except the crew wing says 2251Z. "Say again," she said, not because she hadn't heard, but because protocol demands you ask the universe twice when it tries to be cute. I walked to the doorway between ops and the crew wing. The station is one building, but you learn its territories. Ops to the north, crew to the south, generator corridor punching out west, stores and comms glued into the spine. The wall clock in Ops NTP discipline said 23:32Z now. The analog in the crew wing cheap quartz that drifts when it feels like it said 22:52Z. 40 minutes of bad marriage. Glitch, Will offered over my shoulder. Or I slept through half a TV show, which fair. I pulled my wrist up. My watch, GPS set every morning because I like being smaller than a system. Read 23:32Z like Ops. Across the corridor, the crew wing clock kept its little 22:52 smile as if the problem were my posture. Reset it, Ruiz said reflexively, the way you tell someone to make the beeping stop in a hospital room. Or, she added, catching her own reflex and tossing it away, we do not touch time when time wants touching. The paw, polite as a school bell, chimed its 2 notes. 22:52 Zulu, Ruiz's voice announced from a ceiling speaker we had tagged out, the syllables round and official, as if she had decided to help me pass a test. All hands muster for fuel check. It wants you to line up with the wrong clock, Will said, half delighted, half sick. I phoned the dish for a manual time check because sometimes it's nice to hear a robot tell you you're not crazy. The SAT modem gave me the same Z we'd had in Ops. I logged 12:34 L time discrepancy observed. Ops vs crew wing 40 min, NTP OK, GPS OK, internal PA reporting offset. Protocol, I asked because a new failure needs a sentence with a name. Ruiz exhaled, slow. We've seen 5 before, 10 once, 40 is a swing. We hold in safe until the building agrees with us again. The safe room, Will said, like he'd known all along but wanted to hear the words take shape in the air. Interior, no windows, Ruiz said. The battery closet, mechanical latch. No duct register we can fit a lie through. Bring the wind-up clock from stores, not the quartz, not the network clocks. Price, you grab the analog. Harker, grab the logbook and the med kit, the one that hasn't been out of the drawer today. What if it follows us with its own time? I asked. Then we learn whether it can move hands it didn't make, she said. We gathered under the fluorescent truce of day. Safe room prep looks like an earthquake drill crossed with a superstition. Water, bars, headlamps, two-way radios with the batteries pulled, a printed list of Rule 17 taped at eye level, the new time desync protocol scrawled under it by Ruiz in block letters. If any 2 station time sources differ by 3 min, stop movement. Muster in battery closet, no windows. Door closed, not latched for first 5 min. Primary reference, wind up analog, pilot house clock. No door operations during desync. No comms with voices outside room. No attempts to fix time, no resets, no NTP restarts. Hold until all clocks reconcile for 10 continuous minutes or until day cycle stables. She wrote stables and didn't fix it. We don't edit the parts of us that are tired. I went to stores for the wind-up. The pilot house clock we'd salvaged from a cutter decommissioned long before I was born. Brass bezel gone dull, face with scarred numerals. A key that lives in a cloth bag because the last thing you want to do in the dark is hunt a key in a drawer that also contains the wrong keys. It ticks like something confident without having to be smug. When electronics behave like a committee, a spring feels like a person you can look in the eye. The corridor between ops and stores made me feel like a bad idea in motion. The ops clock said 23:39Z now. The crew wing clock still stuck at 22:59Z as if on purpose. As I passed the galley, the mug I'd abandoned earlier sat on the pass with a little steam lifting from it, though Ruiz had flicked the warmer off in front of me. I put my hand near it. Warm. You don't get to be warm, I told Coffee, because saying the wrong thing out loud can be a kind of inoculation. Stores coughed its light on. The pilot house clock squatted on the top shelf beside a box of microwave mac and a coil of tether line that had never seen outside. I picked the clock up and it came away with a sense of having been waiting. I glanced at its face. 2340Z on the nose. Good, I said to Brass. Don't be cute. When I turned to go, I saw, on the clipboard that hangs by the door, a log entry in my handwriting I hadn't put there. 1241L, coffee still warm where it should be cold. PA calling wrong Z. Do not trust the crew wing clock. My own block letters, the habit I have of slashing my zeros like a European. The L for local the way Ruiz prefers. The ink still shiny like it had been put down 30 seconds ago. Chief. I called as calmly as a person can call for witness to their ghost. She appeared at the threshold in the time it takes a person to walk it. Then she looked at the clipboard and made that face of hers that is not fear, not surprise, recognition with a flavor of anger. It writes us, she said. When the clocks argue, the walls file their own minutes. I didn't. You will or you won't, she said. Either way, we don't let it move us. Another line sat below, half-dried. 1252L battery closet. Do not latch until +5. I didn't write that, I said, and I didn't need to add the rest, but I will. Then let's get you there so you can, she said. We moved like a small, careful parade. Will met us with the med kit and the main logbook under his arm. He had his I'm fine face on, the one that relaxes strangers and fools no one who has eaten with him twice. Clocks, he asked. Still 40 off, I said. Mine says 2341Z, he said, tapping his wrist. Crew wing says 2301Z now. So it's trying, I said, or it's rehearsing. The battery closet lies between comms and the gen corridor, a fat rectangle of concrete and lead acid. No window, no vent big enough to regret, door that closes like a handshake. We put the pilot house clock on the shelf eye-high and wound it with the key from the little cloth bag. Each turn a sound the building can't fake. I set it by my watch and said the time into the room so the room would know I was watching. 2345Z. We'll dump the med kit into a tidy fan of gauze and tape because he needs to make order artifacts when Chaos wants to rent the place. He set the logbook on the floor, open to a fresh page, pen across the spine. I watched my hand not touch it. We closed the door almost all the way. Ruiz has us do that first. 5 minutes of not latched to see if the building wants to make the decision. The light in here hums at a frequency only the tired can hear. The batteries off-gas their little chemical sighs. The clock ticked like a metronome for people who prefer boats. Read me the protocol, Ruiz said, even though she'd written it. I read. Words are railings when the floor wants to be water. Outside the door, the PA found a new toy, 2300 Zulu. It announced in a voice that was mine and Will's and Ruiz's on successive tries. All hands muster. Then 2310, 2330, skipping in tens like a child with a new skill. It was a different Z entirely, a third time not matching either wing. The PA tried on hours like a dress code. Don't let it draft you, Ruiz said. We run on this, and she tapped the brass bezel with a knuckle. The pilot house clock ignored the outside and chugged a second forward. 5 minutes of not latched is a long time. On minute 3, the corridor outside softened into the sound of footfalls that weren't quite steps. On minute 4, something touched the handle like a man who's sure his key used to work here. On minute 5, the handle lifted a breath and then fell like a decision. "Latch," Ruiz said. I turned the thumb turn and we put our backs to the future. We sat on floor and plastic. We can do hours this way. The body becomes a forever if you give it a job. Will murmured box scores under his breath because he can convince his nerves baseball is a prayer. Ruiz breathed like someone demonstrating breathing to professionals. I counted ticks. At plus 12 minutes by brass, the light flickered once and came back. The room cooled 1 degree and then decided against it. The PA outside announced 22:52 as if proud of a loop. The clock on the shelf stayed true. My watch stayed friends with brass. The crew wing's wrong time scraped at the back of my teeth like a seed husk you can't dislodge. "Check," Ruiz said quietly. I cracked the door an inch and held my breath the way a kid holds it when he's trying to hear a page turn. The ops wall clock across the hall blinked 23:58Z like a sore you bite. The crew wing clock, 50 feet and a corner away, hung at 23:18Z now, as if we'd offered it a compromise and it wanted to feel generous. 40 had become 40 plus our impatience. I shut the door. "Latch." "Write it," Ruiz said, and slid the logbook toward me with the toe of her boot. I looked down. The top line was done already in my block script. 23:58Z, Ops vs Crew Wing 40 drifting. Hold. The dash after 40 looked exactly like the dash I make when my pen knows a number is about to arrive and I don't. "I didn't write that," I said. "You're going to," Will said. "Or you already did," Ruiz said. I took the pen because not taking the pen would be a sentence I didn't want the building to finish for me. I wrote 23:59Z, battery closet latched, primary ref pilot house clock, PA reporting nonsense. My letters matched the ghosts. This is how you become a witness to yourself. You sign the thing before it happens so you can own it when it does. Outside, the PA found another hobby. It started telling a boring story in my mother's voice about snow days and cocoa while dropping minute marks every 30 seconds, cheerfully inaccurate and getting wronger. When she got to 23:37, Will's jaw flexed. "That was 44 minutes ago," he said. "Not to the ceiling," I said. He laughed once, the kind that takes a second to find air. "I hate ceilings." "Get in line," Ruiz said. At plus 28 minutes, a soft ripple moved across the batteries like a bass note only machines would dance to. The pilot house clock fluttered a tick and then found its beat again. "Hold," Ruiz said. "No cleverness." I put my palm lightly on the brass. It was warm the way things are at body temperature when they've been near duty for a while. The tick lived against my skin like a second pulse. At plus 33, the corridor settled like a dog making itself comfortable under a human table. The handle stopped thinking about itself. The PA got bored with being wrong and tried being right, announcing 0000 Zulu in 3 voices layered nearly in unison like the time service at the end of the world. "Check," Ruiz said. This time we opened the door before the building could decide we shouldn't. Ops wall clock 0000Z. Crew wing clock 23:20Z. Still 40, Will said. "No," Ruiz said. "It's 40 and change. It wants to walk us toward it." She relatched the door herself with a certainty that put steel in it. We waited some more. This is the job, waiting when you want to be the kind of person action movies have trained you to be. Action here is a different animal. It looks like not moving when movement makes things. At +41, we heard the radio in comms breathe. Not Chef, not our channel. The little local click that sounds like a knuckle popping. Then a young voice said very clearly, 40 minutes. It sounded like me at 19. Don't catalog it, Ruiz said gently. She means don't give it a drawer in your head where it can fold sweaters. At +45, Will said, I left the Leatherman like a man reporting weather. Ruiz didn't answer because Rule 7 was taped to his eye level, black Sharpie on white. At +52, I wrote without choosing to. 0007Z, the clocks will reconcile at 12. Do not open until 22. The ink sat there stupid and calm. Chief, I said, I don't. You're not the first, she said. And so far the paper that writes itself has been. Helpful isn't the word, honest sometimes, about facts it enjoys. What if it writes open? Will asked. It has, she said, and we didn't. We stared at 12 like a condition arriving. The pilot house clock ticked its polite ticks. The light hummed. The air practiced being ordinary so it could get better at being a trap later. 12 came. We cracked the door. Ops wall clock 0012Z. Crew wing 0012Z. 10 minutes to reconcile, Ruiz said, quoting the protocol she'd written with her own hand an hour ago and also 20 years. We held. Outside, the station remembered it was one animal. The PA announced nothing at all, which is how you know it's thinking. At 0022Z by brass and wall, Ruiz unlatched the door like a sailor feeling for weather in the rope. We stepped back into a building that had decided to be singular again. It felt like we'd moved without moving. That's the sync's trick, making distance out of agreement. We went to Ops. The log on the desk lay open. In my handwriting, a line I had not yet written and had already. 0023Z reconciled X10. Resume night protocol. Do not celebrate in hallways. P.S. The clock will tick wrong. Which clock? Will asked, but his face already knew. I went to the shelf where we'd set the pilot house clock. Ticking. Honest. Off the shelf and back to the battery closet because rituals end where they started. I set it on the wire rack and the tick filled the small room like a reminder that man makes springs for a reason. We left the door open to the hall because the protocol said open and also because I didn't want to learn what closed would do to time. From Ops, the PA woke up like a polite friend who'd been sitting quietly while you argued. 2 gentle notes, then nothing. Okay, Ruiz said. Food, then the night set. Rule 3 after midnight, Rule 4 till 4, Rule 5 if it gets inside, Rule 6 purge, Rule 7 forget your toys, and if it starts the clock game again we sprint back to safe like it owes us money. Copy, we said. I thumbed the wind-up clock's key one last turn to make sure it had enough hope to reach morning. The tick felt true under my hand. It kept time for 4 seconds, 5, 6, and then it changed. Not slower, not faster. Patterned. Tick, 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 tick. A pause as clean as a held breath. Tick, 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 tick. I closed my fist around air. Chief, I said, and my voice found the part of me that used to be a kid in a hallway at midnight, listening for grown-ups. Ruiz stood in the doorway, eyes on brass, mouth flat. Will's shadow filled the threshold behind her. The safe clock ticked again, obedient to a pattern it had not been born with. 5, pause, 5. By noon, the building wore its daytime manners again. Diesel breath, fluorescent hum. The faint aftertaste of last night tick-tocking 5-5 in the battery closet like a song you pretend you didn't like. We did the 06-15 purge without commentary. Ruiz made me read Rule 6 out loud while I emptied caches. Never keep any recording from night past 06:15. Purge them. She didn't look at me while I read. You don't stare at a person while they cut a part of themselves off. We'll check the gen panel like a man patting a dog that bit him yesterday and promises it won't again. He didn't say Leatherman. He didn't have to. Rule 7 hung by the door in black Sharpie. Anything left outside overnight isn't yours anymore. He touched the edge of the paper with one finger like a rosary he wished worked. I filed the morning fiction. Autonomous activation, pressure anomaly, extended darkness period. I left out the safe clock learning 5-5. We keep some truths in rooms that can't be emailed. The printer in Ops had a red light on offline as it had been since the dish started playing hard to get in the storm window. We use it for forms when the world behaves. It sat there square and sulky, mouth closed, out tray clean. At 12:43 it spooled. No chirp from the net. No green light. No job in the queue. The rollers turned anyway and fed a sheet. Then another. Thup, thup, thup. Chief, I said, not moving because movement commits you to a version of events and I wasn't ready to pick. Ruiz appeared like she'd been on her way before I called. She watched the printer work the way some people watch snakes. It spat 5 sheets, paused as if listening, then spat 5 more. 5-5 on paper. The header at the top wore our most boring font. United States Coast Guard, Kestrel Station, temporary visitor badge. The fields were plump with typewriter squares, name, affiliation, escort, date, time. There was the ghost of an official seal in the background that I had never authorized to ghost anything. Offline, I said uselessly. Paper doesn't need permission once the building's interested, Ruiz said. She didn't reach for the stack. I did, because sometimes your hand is less superstitious than your head. The first badge read, Visitor name Nancy Price. Affiliation, Civilian St. Paul MN. Escort, E. Price. Date/Z. The dash in the date line wasn't an M dash. It was a little grave marker, the exact length my hand makes when it hesitates. I swallowed very carefully. The next form. Visitor name Coach Donnelly. Affiliation, Civilian St. Paul MN Highland. Escort, E. Price. Date/Z. Then, visitor name Avery McHale. Civilian Selby and Avon Block. Escort, E. Price. Then Pastor Lindholm, Mr. Vasic Hardware, Mrs. Klein from 2B, the neighbor who hated our recycling habits and baked me brownies when Dad was in the hospital. All St. Paul, all my map. That's not random, Will said from the doorway. He had a wrench in his hand like a talisman that's just honest enough to keep. That's a family reunion you did not RSVP to. The printer kept feeding. 10, then 2 more. Then it stopped with a little contented chirp that it hadn't earned. Do not read the names aloud, Ruiz said, voice flat with a history I hadn't been told yet. You don't let them hear themselves here. That a rule? Will asked. It is now, she said, and pulled the Sharpie. Under 7, she wrote without a number. Do not say any name the station prints at night or during anomalies. They answer. It's day, I said, too hopeful, and she didn't bother answering because the day had already given up on being a boundary out here. I set the stack down like it might weigh more than paper. The ink was still a little shiny. The Z line on each had a dash. The escort field always, E. Price. I didn't escort anybody, I said, though the stack had not accused me. Put them away, Ruiz said. Face down, drawer 3. If you feel the urge to check the date line again, don't. Copy. We didn't get a chance to test my self-control. The main corridor made a sound like wet, not dripping. Arrival. We went as a unit, me first without thinking, Ruiz catching my sleeve without looking, as if my sleeve were a dog on a leash and the door the road. Inside the corridor, we found a trail of melt, ovals of warmer wet against cold vinyl, spaced like boot prints that didn't bring boots with them. They started 5 feet inside the main door, not at the threshold, not at the mat, as if someone had blinked into being in line with the camera blind spot. The droplets had melt halos with salt lace drying at the edges. Each oval was too perfect, like a clip art foot. And they went nowhere. They did not aim at ops or comms or galley. They moved 5 prints toward the interior wall, then stopped. In front of the visitor log clipboard we keep by the vestibule for real drop-ins we never get. The bottom sheet, blank this morning, now bore 12 names in my hand. I didn't have to read them. I knew them by the gravity they put in the air. My mother, my coach, my neighbor, a girl I did not kiss behind the ice rink and think about when I want to punish myself with kindness. Some had addresses: Selby and Avon, Hamline and Marshall, Montreal Ave. The hand that wrote them slashed its zeros. It did the thing I do with my J when it starts a middle name. Don't say them, Ruiz said again, softer prayer, not order. I pinched the bridge of my nose the way she does and stared at the wall seam half an inch left of the clipboard. The melt sat there shining like new money, warm to the eye, waiting. How do we log this? I asked. As if it's weather, she said. We always log weather. I wrote 1259L, visitor clipboard populated without personnel input, trail of melt prints from interior to clipboard. No exterior tracks observed, names not spoken. I put pressure anomaly in the cause field because that's where we keep our angers when they need a lab coat. The paw, as if bored, tinged its 2 friendly notes and said, in Pastor Lindholm's voice, Price, you around. Gentle, neighborly. The vowel of around turned a little long and soft the way the pastor did when he wanted you to admit you'd stopped coming to youth nights. Mute, Will said under his breath, like you can do that to rooms. Ruiz shook her head. Names answer if you speak them. They also answer if they hear their own shape. We don't give them their shape. I looked at the stack of badges sitting face down in drawer 3 and saw the drawer move a fraction as if something in there breathed. You said at night or during anomalies, I said. The clock reconciled. The building hasn't, she said. We followed the melt prints left and right because you do that with mysteries even when you've told yourself you won't. 4 more stopped in front of the fire map, then nothing. The wall beyond was dry. The air carried a polite ocean smell, not fish, ship, the chemical sweetness of paint over salt and metal. Back to ops, Ruiz said. We go small when it goes broad. We heard it ourselves. The printer exhaled a single sheet while we walked, as if we'd given it time to think of a punchline. It landed face down. I didn't flip it. I am capable of learning. We closed ops. Not latched. Rule 4 didn't care about doors in daytime, but we practice when practice is cheap. We took our places as if the night were a rehearsal. Will by the corridor bench. Ruiz where she could see the PA console that did not have to be on, me at the desk with the rules taped under it like a kid's cheat sheet he'll never admit he uses. Say the new rule, Ruiz told me. I repeated it. Do not say any name the station prints. The do not found a spot behind my teeth and held my tongue like a thumb. The vent above the ops door stirred, only a little. Warm air passing, but not from our ducts. The temperature didn't change. The sound did. The faintest whisper of paper moving where paper wasn't. A child clearing a throat the size of a marble. I didn't look up. The desk grain is a road when your eyes need travel. Rule 3 is about windows, but I've learned it applies to openings you didn't name. The whisper came again, right at the edge of hearing where your ear insists on a hand. A small voice, not a mimicry of anyone I love, not a friend, winged its mouth against the vent and worked a word like an ambitious secret. James. It said my middle name perfectly, the one I hadn't told anyone here, the one my mother uses like a courtroom. Do not answer, Ruiz said, not looking at me, not looking at the vent, not looking at anything but the rules card on the desk with her own handwriting under 7. The voice tried the name again, careful as a child sounding out a new book. James. I pressed my tongue to the roof of my mouth until taste turned to metal and kept my eyes on the wood grain road, because not every door has hinges you can see. The first whoop came from nowhere it should, a bright, bureaucratic sound that belongs in casinos and office parks, not a shoebox of government metal in the dark. Yellow strobes in the corridor did their polite, epileptic blink. The fire ANN panel in Ops lit 3 reds like Christmas that had read the wrong memo. Server RM, smoke pre-alarm. Clean agent, armed. Door, sealed. I was halfway out of my chair before the rest of me remembered Rule 4 and sat my knees back down. Will popped into the doorway with his good wrench in his wrong hand. Ruiz didn't move at all. Only her eyes adjusted from human to checklist. The server room sealed itself, I said, as if reading the panel in a new voice might trick the night into believing we'd already handled it. At night, Ruiz's mouth made the words like a diagnosis. Nobody armed it. Will pointed with the wrench because pointing felt better than thinking. Abort switch by the door. We hit it. Crack the seal, fan the room, nobody suffocates, and the computers don't get a lungful of Halon and a bad attitude. The second whoop climbed the corridor and did a strange little dip at the end, a downturned vowel you hear when a person tries not to cry. The training says abort and vent, I said, hearing the manual I'd passed a test on in a classroom that smelled like carpet. The rules say don't open doors after midnight. Ruiz's gaze stayed on the fire ANN like she could make it tell the part it had redacted. We are not cracking a seal for a room that armed itself. The pre-discharge timer started counting in square little segments on the panel, 30, 29, 28. A teacher tapping a watch with a smile no child believes. The corridor strobes fell into cadence with it. Flash, flash, pause, flash, flash. A new flavor of 5-5. Chief. Will's voice had the wire of a man arguing with a dog that has his glove. Halon takes the oxygen if somebody's in there. Nobody is in there, she said, the way you swat a word before it can grow teeth. The panel's little speaker was supposed to be a tone-only device. Instead it spoke, modulating its whoop into syllables that got uncomfortably close to English. Whoop oh whoop pen, it tried. Whoop oh whoop pen. I hate that, Will said very evenly. I hate that so much. The server room door sits 10 paces down from Ops. A steel slab with a wire glass view slot and the abort mushroom beside it, bright red, crying out to be pushed by a responsible adult. The manual release pull hangs opposite, sealed in a little plexi cover so you can feel official when you break it. Above the door, the agent status light glowed armed, yellow now, aiming for discharge, red unless we made a choice. We're not making a choice, Ruiz said. The rules already made it. She grabbed the Sharpie, wrote 8 under 7 in those deliberate caps of hers, and didn't lift the marker until the sentence finished breathing. 8 if the Halon/clean agent cycles at night do not break the seal. Ride it out. Do not press abort. Do not open. Hold your breath for other things, not that. Copy, I said, because some words are handholds. She made us say it back, the whole rule, no shortcuts, like a call and response in a church that plans to be there in the morning. The timer hit 10. The corridor lights did their little algebra. 2 blinks, rest, 2 blinks. The panel's tiny voice worked its favorite verb like it had learned it phonetically just to be charming. Whoop, open. Don't look at the slot, Ruiz said, one palm out in a traffic cop stop for my eyes. Corners, hinges, the parts of doors that don't have stories. Or, Will offered and swallowed. We could not look at the door at all. Ruiz pointed at the battery closet, our safe. Interior, no window, mechanical latch. The clock that had learned to tick in 5-5. That, now. We hold outside the sealed room, not next to it. Don't breathe the argument. We moved as a bundle, the way you carry something fragile when you're the thing. The corridor stank faintly of fire extinguisher Christmas, that sweet, cold chemical that promises to put out a different kind of flame. Ruiz pulled the closet door until it almost latched and left it there, a decision we could change without metal complaining. We sat with our backs to plastic and lead. The panel bleated its countdown in felted syllables. Somebody could be in there, we'll said again, softer. Nobody's schedule puts a body in the server room at 0017, Ruiz said. And if the building has learned to put bodies where schedules don't, that door is not a solution. The discharge hit at 0018. The corridor lowered an octave. You don't hear gas. You hear the world remember it has lungs. The server room leaked a millimeter of pressure change into the hallway that only tools and animals register. The whoop fell silent mid-syllable, as if satisfied. The agent released, invisible and incredibly present, the way an argument ends and leaves truth behind. We held our breaths because bodies are superstitious. The closet's safe clock ticked its 5, paused, ticked its 5. The lights hummed. The panel settled into the steady, hypocritical calm devices adopt when they are proud of their performance. Timer says room hold. I read because reading is a way to not think about oxygen. 10 minutes. The corridor air didn't stir. The duct above the server door isn't a duct. It's a sensor box with nothing to say. The view slot in the steel carried a rectangle of dark so dense it felt like furniture. Eyes off the slot, Ruiz said again. Copy, I said, staring at the closet hinge like it owed me money. A voice evac message tried to spin up inside the panel, synthetic human set to evacuate now, and instead gave 2 syllables of something else, froze and died. The error LED blinked twice like a blink means anything to men sitting on a floor. The agent, Will started. Isn't for us, Ruiz finished. Ride it out. He rubbed his sternum the way people do when they want air and their lungs don't want to have a conversation. You ever think about how we get to keep breathing because we're on the wrong side of math? Every night, she said. We were very, very quiet for a while. In quiet, your ears pick favorites. Mine chose the tick of the safe clock. Will's chose the faintest hiss that might have been nothing. Ruiz's, I think, chose us. At minute 3, the panel tried being funny again. Instead of whoop, it gave 2 quick chirps, a rest, and 2 more, 5-5 in miniature, then shaped them into a word like a parlor trick. Open. Do you ever get tired of being predictable? We'll inform the hardware kindly. At minute 6, a soft thud came from inside the server room. Not heavy, not metal, soft like a dropped glove. Then another. Then 5 in a row, a bored rhythm on a rubber mat. Testing gravity, Ruiz murmured. It loves gravity. At minute 9, the view slot did a thing glass shouldn't. The dark behind it went from not there to there without a transition. Light from the corridor cut a thin mirror into the pane. If I had looked, I would have seen myself, and then something wearing myself, and then... "Eyes down," Ruiz said. "Seeing me maybe see. Corners, hinges, corners," I said, "hinges." The panel clicked over to room hold complete and pretended the math had restored morals to the building. The agent light stepped back from red to yellow. The abort mushroom sat like a clown's nose on an apology you couldn't accept. "Do not touch that," Ruiz told the air. The air did what it wanted. We waited past the end of the hold because rules aren't timers and timers aren't truth. When the panel finally gave us post-discharge/vent mode available, I imagined the crisp little procedures back at base. The ones on laminated cards, the pretty flowchart that says, "Open door 2 inches, allow egress of agent, engage purge fans." The flowchart does not have a box for night. Ours does. "We are not opening," Ruiz said before either of us could live in a box the flowchart built. "We call it a successful test of an autonomous system, and we breathe air the world made before the room learned hobbies." The PA chimed sweetly in the ceiling and tried again to be useful. "Halon discharge complete. Please open the server," and then thought about the clause after that for so long it forgot to finish it. "There it is," Will said without any particular inflection. "Polite murder." We got up together, not to go, but to not. You have to stand for that. We put our bodies in the corridor between the panel and the door, close enough to believe we were doing something, far enough to not be doing anything in particular. "Log it," Ruiz said. I wrote because writing is our second lung. 0032Z, server RM clean agent discharge with no smoke observed. Panel voice attempted speech open. Rule 8 enacted. No abort, no door. Hold complete. Vent deferred to daylight. In cause I put pressure anomaly and underlined it because sometimes underline is all the honesty you can afford. The view slot stayed dark like a wound under gauze. The corridor strobes had given up their 5-5 and gone sedate. The building relaxed one vertebra at a time. "Okay," Ruiz said. She didn't get to finish Something touched the glass from inside the sealed room. Not a rap, not a knock. The kind of press a person does when they need witness more than exit. A face easing into a window as if the glass were warm. Cheek and brow and mouth flattening until the wire in the wire glass made a loose graph paper over skin. I didn't have to look to know it was there. The corridor tilted toward the door the way a room tilts to a baby swaying in a doorway. There was a smear sound, soft, human, like a breath being borrowed from air that had none to give. Will took half a step he did not mean to take. Ruiz's hand found his sleeve and wrote "stay" on it without ink. In the faint gloss of the view slot, something like an eye tried to find us through the wire mesh, an iris built out of nothing and hope, and pressed harder to the glass from the inside of a room the panel swore was sealed. Morning did its ceasefire trick and the building put on its daytime manners. We did the 06-15 purge like we meant it. Ruiz had me read Rule 6 out loud while I nuked caches because sometimes the only way to keep a rule is to make it hear itself. Well, didn't say Leatherman, he didn't have to. Rule 7 was taped to 3 doors in black Sharpie now. 7. Anything left outside overnight isn't yours anymore. Do not bring it in. No exceptions. Not gear, not tools, not keepsakes. At 11:23 the satellite found religion for a minute and spat us admin, whether diesel and one short message from a sergeant in Juneau who lives in a building where clocks only do what they are told. Recall request, return DS-12 data case to secured storage, reconcile custody chain by EOD. Prioritization high. DS-12, I asked. Supply drop last evening, Ruiz said, scanning the line again like it would admit to a different tone on the second pass. We staged it under the lee outside the vestibule because of the Halon circus. No one brought it in. That means we left it out there overnight, Will said, already hating the sentence. All three of us looked by habit, not by choice, at the taped rule by the door. I can sign that we didn't receive it, Ruiz said. We can tell them Winter ate their paperwork. The SAT box pinged again, as if it had heard. Accountability bolded now, a paragraph about property, JAG not a threat, just the weight of a system that knows exactly how many cups you own. We are not bringing their case into our building, Will said, and pointed at the rule like pointing makes the Sharpie thicker. Then we walk it back without bringing it in, I said, mouth ahead of brain. We run the tether, we go to the case, we look. We make Juno feel loved, and we leave the thing on the far side of our door. Ruiz stared past me at a spot on the wall where the paint has learned to be patient. Buddy system daylight, do not cross the threshold with anything that slept outside, she said. We look, we do not adopt. Copy, Will said because he likes earning his stubborn. We suited like it was a short Eva. Will checked my line the way he checks his, hands on buckles, double back the webbing, tug code card clipped where I could read it even if the wind had opinions. The tether ran from our inside cleat to the lee bollard, 37 yards of nylon over cable the color of old teeth. Daylight had made a bruised decision, pale blue behind a gauze that had found a hobby in sideways. Keep it outside, Ruiz said at the vestibule. No vestibule games. If it's warm, step back. If it calls you by a name you like, step back faster. Copy, I said. I wanted to make a joke about how my favorite name these days is Mug without chips. The sentence got lost somewhere between lungs and door. The wind bit like a dog that promises it's just playing. The DS-12 case sat where a responsible person would have left it, under the lee, stenciled USC DS-12 in faded block on black pelican plastic, 2 latches, a hole for a lock no one had used. A light skin of rime had rimmed the gasket. The case had its own shadow, darker than the rest of the lee, as if it wanted to make interior out of exterior. Runner smooth, Will said behind me, voice in my ear by radio and then again half a second later by mouth because the air here relays your friends when it wants to be kind. I reached the case. The glove-ready handle lifted too easy like it had already decided to be held. I put my palm flat to the lid to steady it while I checked the latches and hissed. Hot, Ruiz said immediately. She was on the line in my other ear, not asking, diagnosing. Warm, I said. Not hot. Back of neck warm. Sun hood of car warm. It didn't see sun, Will said. Even in Alaska we don't have imaginary sun. I levered a latch. It flipped with a hungry little clack. The second answered in sync. Clack, 2 and 2 and 1, 5. The gasket sighed like a room remembering people. A line of melt ran off onto the mat and wrote a cursive my Minnesota brain wanted to call welcome. I'm not bringing it in. I told no one and everyone and lifted the lid. Air moved from the case to the world, not wind, a press. The kind of air you get when you open a box that has decided it is inside even when the outside insists it's outside. The smell went past plastic into house, detergent, coffee, old envelopes, the part of wool that never stops being sheep. Inside, not drives, not desiccant, not a chain of custody form that makes the government feel seen. Photos, I know the kind. Real 4x6 with sloppy borders from a drugstore printer. The back faint with a developer logo. The edges that little burr you get when the cutter in the machine wants to go home early. Rubber banded stacks. An envelope with price on the tab in block letters I use when I'm trying to be legible. Only I haven't written that tab in my life. I didn't pull a stack. I told myself I didn't. A rubber band snapped its 5 when my glove closed, and the top 5 fanned like an assistant doing a card trick. A fridge filled the first frame, hours from St. Paul. Bad white paint over good white enamel. Dent in the lower right where a boy once learned about leverage with a hockey stick. Magnets. The Minnesota outline, a cheap thermometer from a furnace company, a blue ribbon from a summer fair. On the fridge, a chore chart in my mother's hand. Evan James trash/Tuesday, recycling/Friday, shovel if it snows. The ink had bled the way gel pen ink does when a page knows about humidity. The next photo, our living room in winter light. The green couch with the sag in the middle. A blanket with a Nordic star pattern. The Afghan my grandmother made. The one Mom says she'll be buried with and then laughs so you won't tell her not to joke. On the end table, a mail stack with my name in windows. I didn't flip them over. Do not read names is a day rule now. We keep day rules. The third, my mother in the kitchen with a bowl of dough and the whisk I bent in 7th grade. Her chin turned toward the photographer the way she turns when she says what to a son who's taller than her and thinks that means anything. She looked 35 and 40 and 50 at once, the way Midwestern women do when they are busy loving. The fourth, the sidewalk outside the hardware store on Montreal, a dusting of snow and a sandwich board that always says ICE melt because it's Minnesota and time is a loop. In the window, my reflection at 19, head shaved from a coach's bad idea, my mouth in that stupid open shape you get when a friend says don't and you say watch. Behind me, Coach Donnelly pointing with 2 fingers, the way he did when he was pretending to be mad so we'd remember drills when we were. The fifth, a mirror, not a mirror, glass, a window in a house I don't recognize, and in it me at 22 and the corner of a patch I didn't own then. Kestrel in yellow on blue, the silhouette of the bird, the little red hash we use for the latitude on our internal stuff. Someone beside me in the glass wearing our winter gear. The stamp in the corner reads a date 8 years before my orders. I put that one upside down on the top of the stack like an apology nobody deserved. Evan, Ruiz's voice in my ear. You are allowed to step back. I didn't bring it in, I said. I heard my gloves trying to be honest with each other. Is it warm? Will asked again. He knows how to keep a brain anchored to body. He is the line we tie around each other's middle when the drift looks like a suggestion. Yeah, I said. Case is warm. Photos are. I stopped because I had picked one up my mother's face, and the paper was the temperature of a hand. It's noon and 20, Ruiz said. Daylight buys us argument, not permission. Close it, back out. We don't adopt things that learn to be warm outside. I closed the lid. The gasket kissed itself shut with a soft hush that you hope never comes from a mouth. I set the case outside the vestibule door. I did not cross the threshold. If I breathe one honest thing today, it's that. We walked back along the tether like men leaving a graveside early because the weather promised to finish the job without us. The vestibule swallowed us with all its stupid metal comfort, the safety of a latch you touch, the downslope of noise. Juno pinged again right on cue because bureaucracy can sense faithlessness, ACK receipt, in that upstairs tone. Ruiz typed nothing and made the tone go away. She cocked her head at the door. "We will not bring it inside," she said to us, and also to the door and also to the thing outside that thinks it knows what inside is. "Copy," Will said. We lasted 10 minutes. Not because anyone got stupid, because the case decided to help. At 12:54, the vestibule sensor, which only cares about heat because that's the one thing you can sue a building about, bonged twice and turned the inner door indicator green. It does that when a person stands in the vestibule and gets cold enough to count as a liability. The polite government wants you to let them in. "Nobody's in there," Ruiz said. The inner door did its cheerful little unlock thunk. The PA chimed, 2 notes like bread is ready. "Visitor," it announced in the same bored voice it uses for fire drills, "escort, E. Price." "Don't move," Ruiz told my ankles, which had been about to volunteer without asking my mouth. The inner door stayed shut because doors are good at being literal when humans aren't. The sensor bonged a third time like a man knocking on a bathroom with the lock occupied. "Let me move it farther," I said. "Kick it off the mat." "No kicks," she said. "If it's not ours, we don't tell it anything about how our bodies work." We watched the door like people at a zoo pretend to watch the sign instead of the cat. The sensor argued with itself for another minute. Then it got bored, as electrical things do when they realize the organism in front of them isn't going to give them a treat, and the inner door light went red again. The temptation went quiet. "Juno can wait," Ruiz said, and that was the last we planned to say about the case. At 15:10, the weather pretended to be merciful, flat light, honest wind. The printer coughed one sheet face down and did not apologize. We didn't flip it. Will announced he was teaching himself to make stew without vegetables because vegetables lied. I told him he's a better person when he loses arguments to carrots. Ruiz pretended we were 3 in a station and not a station with 3 people in its mouth. At 16:30, the vestibule banged. Not the inner door, the outer, metal on metal. Low, like someone had set a heavy thing down without permission and then picked it up again in 5s. The camera on the vestibule, the one that doesn't trust the vestibule because it's right, showed the case right where I left it and a ring of melt around it, honest and sincere, like a halo for things that want to be good. Steam climbed off the black plastic like a barback working an espresso machine. The case looked like a stove. "Warm," Will said. "You said warm, it heard too warm." We watched through glass. We did not open. The case sat. The steam learned to be breath for exactly 5 seconds and then remembered it was physics again. The halo widened. The black plasticky skins of pellets you sometimes find inside a pelican case's lid adhesive, stuff that's supposed to stick foam where foam belongs, started to weep, glossy and slow. "If it crosses the threshold on its own," I said, and didn't finish because no one had written that rule yet and I didn't want to be the kind of person who gave Sharpies jobs. "It didn't cross. It asked. The way a dog asks, sitting neat, tail on its paws, eyes too big, knowing you don't want to say the word but you like being the person who can. We left it on its mat like a time bomb you can disarm by refusing to know which wire is red. The sky did its twilight trick, smearing bruise over blue. I stood watch while the others pretended food is something you can cook out of a can with a reputation. At 17:05, the case tapped. Not on the door, from inside itself. 5:5. "I hate that," Will called from galley on time as always. The wind leaned, the case quieted, the halo cooled. The vestibule camera got bored and provided me a reflection of myself with a job I didn't want. I'd like to say we didn't break Rule 7. We didn't, not in the letter. The case stayed outside. Our door stayed shut. Rule 7 broke us anyway. At 18:12, the printer coughed a sheet without power again. We let it sit face down because we're not stupid anymore. It still counted as an answer. At 18:28, I found the DS-12 custody form on my desk in my hand, paper warm like it had been near a person. My signature in blue I didn't own, Price received, time, the dash for a grave marker again. Nope, Ruiz said and slid it into a manila that said janitorial because sometimes sarcasm is hygiene. At 19:00, day gave itself up with that Arctic lack of ceremony, and the world became a rectangle in a window you don't look through. We ran night checks fast like hands that have to work before minds sit down. I powered the radio down at 23:30 and wrote RED bus OK so the checklist would feel listened to. The PA chime did its 2 notes because love is habitual. The vestibule sensor bonged one last time like a kid you told not to ring the bell. Rule 4, Ruiz said, voice already night. Doors don't get to be friends, Will replied, easy. We took our places. Comms again, corridor bench again. The rules card under the desk like a talisman and a cuff. Outside the case sat and the night sat with it. Run your hands, Ruiz said. I do it every night now. I pat myself down like a cop for the things I will not take toward doors. Hands empty, pocket empty, mouth empty of names. I put my hand down on the desk. Not on paper, on gloss. A photo lay there. Not from the case unless the case had learned to post. 4x6 drugstore, the back telling me a developer name I know from Selby. The smell of it, ink, and a room that isn't this one, moved through me like a memory you didn't make. The frame, snow glare, low sun. A helicopter pad with a cartoon of a bird nobody asked us to paint. A man and another man, arms slung over shoulders in a way you do when you mean it, winter gear, grins, cheeks raw. A day someone decided should be a good day, so it was. The patch on one sleeve, Kestrel. The face on the other, me. Younger by the softness, younger by the shoulders. The date stamp in the bottom right corner said a winter 8 years before my orders. Chief, I said, and my voice had stairs in it. We've got a Rule 7 consequence. Ruiz came without hurry and then did the quick stop that means hurry has become a bad idea. Will leaned in low, breath taller in the cold air than it should be for a warm room. I turned the photo over before my mouth could read the backs the way names make you read them. Someone had written Great Day at Kestrel in marker that bled like gel pen on grocery list paper. Under it, my last name, my middle name, James, underlined once like a parent and twice like a joke. On the front, the patch shone and the grin I wouldn't trust on a friend came out of a mouth I know the shape of from the inside. Evan, Ruiz said carefully, like a person telling someone a dog is about to bite and please don't move. You were not here 8 years ago. No, I said, and the case outside tapped 5, paused, tapped 5. Kestrel does this thing in the hour after midnight where it pretends to be a church. Everyone whispers. The heat hums like a choir warming up, and you're not sure if sitting still is worship or surrender. We were running the small hours pattern, Ruiz at ops, while doing his corridor bench impression of a gargoyle, me in comms with the rules taped under the desk like scripture. The crew wing was the dark we keep for ourselves. 6 lockers, olive paint scabbed by years of gloves that meant it. Vents punched into the doors like a field of tiny moons. Nothing moves there unless a person does. Something moved. Not a slam, not drama. the quiet pop of a spring latch relieving itself. Then another, pop, 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 a neat 5, pause, pop, 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 metal tongues exhaled in the dark. Chief Will called, calm, doing sit-ups under his sternum. Lockers. What kind of lockers? Ruiz asked. The kind that open without being told. We took the corridor together, non-urgent the way you are when everything in you is running. The emergency lights, our forever red, put a film of movie on the metal. The first locker door hung 1 inch open, then the second, then the third. The last 3 were still shut, acting like citizens. Do not touch, Ruiz said softly. Not door, not air. Inside the first locker, a sleeve uncoiled by itself and drowsed over the lip. The wool hat we keep for weekdays rolled forward like a tide. In the second, a pair of socks did their best snake impression and slid into the hallway, noses together, heel to toe. In the third, a bootlace crawled, slow as an inchworm, to meet the other lace from the other boot. See it? Will whispered. It's spelling. The laces tugged and arranged. The socks flattened, heel crescents becoming curves. A scarf I didn't remember owning unrolled itself from a shelf and lay down like a line. In the red light on the cold vinyl, the gear drew letters no hand could have made that neat from a crouch. C.O. Ruiz didn't look away, but her tone turned instructor. Say the new bullet. I said it because saying is a leash. Do not respond to taunts, spoken or written. Do not tidy them, do not edit them, do not answer. The scarf pulled another curve. 2 more laces crept out and crossed with practiced patience. The letters were near perfect now, padding themselves with cuffs and sleeves as if mass matters to words. M.E. Fun parlor trick, Will said to the dark. Tickets are $5, cash only. The fourth locker popped online with the other commas in the sentence. Its door hiccuped, paused an inch, did the kind of polite, open people practice in homes that aren't theirs. From the top shelf, a dog tag pair slid forward and fell with a small, official tink onto the tile. I didn't bend. I wanted to. Dog tags are gravity. They bring fingers that don't belong to them. The tags swung on their chain like a clock that had decided to be useless. I could read the stamping without picking them up. Last name unlike any I know. Service number in a format that stopped before I was born. A blood type you only see in training quizzes. The holes at the ends of the chain were oval from years of necks that sweat salt through metal. The letters had that white fill you get when cold decides ink is a luxury. They don't belong to anyone alive, Ruiz said. She wasn't guessing. The station keeps its old personnel lodged in the seams like coins. Do not say those names. I swallowed my instinct to read. Do not say names is a day rule now. Tonight it wore a winter coat. The fifth locker licked its latch and let a sweater slide out, one sleeve hanging over like a tongue. The sleeve stretched. The sorts of stretching clothing does when it has a body in it and then decides to be its own body. On the floor, the message finished itself without hurry. Letters sat in the red, good penmanship for a thing without hands. COMEOUT. When the word OUT settled, a film of rhyme slid along the baseboard behind it and made a second draft. Frost grew in strokes as if a child with a cold finger traced each letter's path. The frost was fat, white, proud of itself. The room dropped a degree it couldn't afford. Rule 4, Ruiz said, because rules cover more than doors when you let them. Rule 5, say them. Do not open any door 000000400 no matter what voice. Will recited, eyes on the floor. If it comes inside, hide till morning. And do not respond to taunts. I added, like a man tucking his own hand into his own pocket. The sixth locker, the one on the end that always whines because its hinge hates work, stayed closed for a beat longer than you'd bet. Then it sang the smallest click and opened exactly as wide as an eye. From somewhere that did not announce itself, a little condensation touched the inside of the door and grew letters so thin you'd miss them if you were a person with a better night. Come out, lowercase, like a note left under wipers. I am not a you can't dare me person, Will said. I am a very good don't dare me person. Be that, Ruiz said. She flicked her Sharpie, turned the rules card over and wrote 9 with the calm of a clerk and the weight of a priest. 9 do not answer taunts, spoken, written, mechanical. No gestures, no cleanup, no counter message, let the mess be. She underlined mechanical until the pen squeaked. The rhyme on the baseboard grew an underline of its own as if it enjoyed the genre. The first 3 locker doors eased farther open, letting the room see the contents had moved themselves. Folded shirts were now rows of slashes, socks made dots, thumbed paperbacks. We trade them like cigarettes edged into serifs. A photo Will keeps buried, his sister with a dog that looks like trouble, walked itself to the lip and stared face down at the letters like a person refusing to read headlines. Back up, Ruiz said. We did. 2 steps. 2 more. The air at ankle level had that low ocean tang we're not near. Salt rides everything here now when it feels like proving a point. A new set of dog tags slid out from somewhere in the 5th locker and skittered half a foot, then stopped like they'd hit a line only they could see. The stamping on these I recognized this time because recognition is bigger than instruction. Marcus. The name we do not say. The letters were bruised into steel, each S a little crooked in the way one press operator's habit becomes a style. I didn't say it. Neither did Ruiz. Neither did Will. The dog tags waited, then did a tiny dance, tap, 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 pause, tap, 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 their own brave 5-5. The rhyme script doubled down. The letters got bolder as if Frost could take a second pass. Come out. No, Ruiz told the room. She told the room this like an adult tells stairs not now. We don't decorate your conversation. The first locker hiccuped its last bit of patience and yawned all the way. A pocket dumped. Change did nickel weather across tile. A coin rolled in a perfect circle, stopped at the toe of my boot and stood on edge for a breath like physics wasn't looking. Go small, Ruiz said. Into comms, bench, desk. Hide if it gets bold. We backed down the corridor slow. You don't turn your back on letters. The lockers breathed. As we passed the water fountain, the one we pretend we care about for health and safety, ice filmed over the bubbler hole and then withdrew as if shy. The letters CO tried themselves there before the metal warmed them into memory. Not your canvas, Will said, and his voice didn't lose the music he keeps for nervous. In comms, we left the door half shut the way you leave arguments half open. I slid under the desk without arguing with my bones. The laminate's grain gave me roads to watch. Will took his bench like a dog who means 4 paws at once. Ruiz stood in the threshold and practiced the martial art of existing. The lockers didn't like being reduced to a hallway. They sent their conversation in sound instead. A chain rose and fell, the dog tags, replicating breathing for a person who wouldn't give them air. A book flapped 1 page, then another, then 5. A boot heel tapped the floor like a guy killing a nervous tick on purpose. The PA offered 2 small chimes like it wanted us to know it was still available for customer service. Don't, Ruiz said, and the ceiling let the chimes hang there. We have taught our ceilings nothing and everything. The cold pulled down another inch. The edge of the calm's door took on frost ferns. They tried for letter again and settled for leaf. I am proud of them for trying, and I hate them for wanting my mouth to help. Then the slam came. One locker door, I couldn't see which, threw itself shut hard enough to shake screws. The air shoved our ears the way shocks in a car do when you speed over memory. Silence, not rest, pose. If it locks itself, Will said, very even, we are not the locksmith. No, Ruiz said, we are the tomorrow. The slam spooked something that had been quiet. From inside the locker, inside metal and wool and the little air a box keeps for itself, a cough sounded. Not a stranger's cough. Not a recorded cough, my cough. The two quick hums and the swallow I hate hearing out loud, the way I clear my throat before reading a line Ruiz asks me to read twice. Price, Ruiz said, and her voice tried to not be a held breath. Say it. I pressed my palms flat to the floor, found tile with my fingerprints, found my name without giving it to anyone. Do not answer. I said it to the room. I said it to the locker. I said it to the part of me that wanted to walk down the hallway and prove doors are just furniture. Inside the slammed locker, my cough came again, softer, as if the mouth that owned it had turned away from the vents. Then it did the two-note recovery I've been doing since I was 12. The letters on the floor in the red light smiled their winter smile and did not need to say anything else. It started as 5-5 like always, polite knuckles on conduit, 5 taps, a breath, 5 more. Background music for the sort of night where furniture rehearses being aggressive. Then the pattern changed. From the corridor steel, tap, a longer breath. From the vent, tap, tap, a beat. From the floor plate under the comms chair, tap, tap, tap. One short, Will said before his mouth remembered we don't get to be clever at midnight. 2 short, 3 short. Ruiz didn't look up from the rules card on the desk. Don't name them. The taps repeated, tidier this time, like someone had found their rhythm on our bones. Pause. My throat made the small sound I hate it for. A thing from Colregs climbed up out of a classroom in my head and tried to sit on my tongue. 1 short equals I am altering my course to starboard. 2 short equals 5 or more rapid equals danger. I doubt your intentions. It's hailing us, whispered, like we're the other ship. Knowledge is bait, Ruiz said, 3 words like a lid. Say the rule. I wrote it where the Sharpie goes when you stop pretending you'll never need more rules. 10. Knowledge is bait. Do not decode patterns live. Do not say what you think it means while it's happening. Learn at noon, not at night. We said it back. The taps listened. They got cute. A long smear against the panel like a horn drawn with a fingernail. Again. Long. Short, short. My dumb brain meeting in a narrow channel. My smarter mouth stayed closed because I wanted to see morning, and the rule said no translations in the dark. The station tried other dialects. 2 prolonged scrapes 6 seconds apart like a ship in fog under Rule 35 telling the world it still exists. The old 5-5 came back every so often like a nervous tick. Danger, doubt. The night's favorite sentence. Log shape, not meaning, Ruiz said. Dots and dashes, not the book they want us to read. So I wrote what a recorder writes when it refuses to become a priest. 0041 tap sets, 1/2/3, occasional long scrape, 5-5 returns at irregular intervals. No verbalization of hypothesis. The tapping did not like being reduced to geometry. It stopped being knuckles and became the building itself. Handrails humming, door skins purring, the tether anchor in the vestibule vibrating in a key that had eaten too much salt. Language learning how to be room. We hid when we had to because Rule 5 doesn't negotiate. We did not translate out loud. At 06:15 Purge. We burned the night's audio nothing. We stacked the logs. We let the station pretend it hadn't just tried to pass a licensing exam. Daylight turns beatings into homework. Ruiz slid the Coast pilot and the Colreg summary out of the book locker like a pair of knives she knows are already sharp. We'll haul the NOAA chart for our sector onto the ops table, the blue-green one with the soundings that make you feel like numbers can hold you up. Day, Ruiz said, as if naming it blessed it. Decode now. We went slow, not to be dramatic, to be safe. We took the patterns we'd logged as shapes and moved them against printed tables instead of the air. One short will read finger on the page. Starboard, 2 short port. 3 short, astern propulsion. 5 short or more short and rapid. Danger or I don't understand your intentions. Last night, I said, we got 1, 2, 3 as a set, then 5 as punctuation. Narrow channel meeting, Ruiz murmured, not answering, acknowledging physics. She slid the Colreg Rule 9 card toward me like a dealer with a sense of humor. We laid the tally over the chart. The 3 shipping lanes, Russian, Chinese, and the odd North Korean run, had always been there in our heads. Now they were drawn. Gray arteries converging on Kestrel's latitude like the station had sprouted right where the sea decided to make a junction. Arrows, traffic flow, pilot boarding areas marked with little circles that meant nothing until today. Look at the pilot call, Will said, finger on a tiny symbol and then on a tiny table. 4 short blasts H in Morse, traditionally used by pilot vessels on duty. We'd gotten 4 short in the night once. I realized when the PA tried to be helpful about the Halon. It had chittered 4 little chirps that pissed Will off. I hadn't put it in the log because the log was full and so was my head. Navigation is a language, Ruiz said. It's speaking with it and at us. That's what bait likes to do. It dresses up as sense. So what is it saying? I asked, immediately hating the greed in the question. She tapped Rule 10 with the Sharpie's butt. We do that here, she said, daylight. Coffee, doors open and boring. We do not do it when the pipes want to teach us at midnight. We decoded in public, like sinners teaching Sunday school. We laid last night's shape lines next to whistle signal tables, the restricted visibility rules, the overtaking schemes, the overtaking answers. We made columns, herd/book. We wrote 1, 2, 3 and let it sit beside I intend starboard/port/astern. We wrote 5 and let it sit beside danger/don't understand. We did not draw arrows from one box to the other because arrows are promises. The station behaved itself while we studied. It let the coffee be coffee. It let the printer sulk. It did not tap. Why this language? I asked finally, when the coffee was half gone and the sunlight had condescended to slant through a slit in the clouds and paint the chart like an advertisement for coastlines. Because it belongs here, Ruiz said. Because if you want to make a thing open its doors, you speak its work back at it. We followed the lanes with 2 fingers, mine tracing the Russian line up along the shelf, Will's walking the Chinese route that bends too close to our monitors for comfort. Both sets said Kestrel at the center without saying it. On the chart, our station was a small square and a name in tiny type. On the water, it is the listener people pretend doesn't listen. We found the meeting point, the place the arrows kiss, 3 bowies like commas and a pilot boarding circle. Ruiz set the Sharpie point on it and didn't press down. She lifted it a 1/4 inch and tapped 5 times in air, not on paper. Don't feed the map. Rule 10 holds for maps, she said quietly. Do not trace night on charts while night is still listening. You think it hears ink? Will asked. I think it hears decision, she said. The chart had come out of stores laminated. We laminate our sins, we laminate our tools. The lamination had a wrinkle near Kestrel, air trapped under plastic the day someone cut the sheet and told it to be flat. The wrinkle grew a shine under the window's brief mercy and then moved. Chief, I said, reflex wrapped in paper. Stain. It was small at first, a darker oval like a greased thumb you only see when a light gets cocky. It widened, branched, and ridged, not as a spill does but as a decision. The lamination trapped it. It climbed anyway, pushing fine lines against the plastic like something trying to turn a surface into a skin. We watched. You learn to watch without helping. Lines doubled and split and hooked. A delta formed where three little rivers would live on a real hand. A short island of ink appeared 2 ridges north, the size and shape of a scar I carry. The one from the dock plate in Duluth that taught me about loose snow and hurry. The stain curled around it exactly the way my left index fingerprint curls around that interruption. Will walked backward a step without meaning to. Ruiz said nothing, because there is nothing you can teach a man about his own print except run or stay. I did the stupid thing because part of me is wired for jurisdiction. I pressed my left index lightly against the chart's clear margin where there was no stain to ruin the lines. The ridge pattern showed honest on the plastic loops and bifurcations. The fish hook near the delta that got me teased in the academy because my card looked like it had a typo. Don't, Ruiz said after I did it. Too late, I said. We leaned in. The stain on Kestrel's little square, the place where the lanes converge, had arranged itself into the same geometry as the ridges under my skin. The tiny hook at the delta matched, angle, length. The single broken ridge 3 turns out that makes my left index look like it smiled and then changed its mind. The stain finished a line I didn't know a map could carry and then stopped, as if pleased to have gotten me right. On the legend, where Noah explains itself in the small print that makes you think humans have tamed the world, a tiny wet fingerprint ghosted up out of nothing. My print, half a world inside a plastic sheet. Rule 10, Ruiz said, soft and powerless and exactly enough. Knowledge is bait. The stain at Kestrel deepened, ridge lines darkening like they'd been printed with a roller, and the pilot's circle under it. Our little boarding area drew a black whorl around the delta, the way identity texts do when they ink you and prove you are you. The station lay still. The map did not. The fingerprint on Kestrel finished itself with a neat little spur that I have under a magnifying glass in my file, and no one else does. Then held, perfect, as if it were waiting for me to say my name. At 02:17 the station got beautiful. Not the Arctic kind, steel blue that forgives nothing. June beautiful. Gold pushed under the blackout shades like a dog's nose under a door. The PA chimed 2 friendly notes and then softly reveille 4 bars only like it had the courtesy to be shy. Time, Ruiz said without looking at the light. 02:17Z, I said from my watch. Ops wall clock agreed. The pilot house brass said 02:17 in a tick you can trust when your lungs can't. Outside it should be night from now until February's stingy gray. Something breathed through the vents that wasn't ours. Warm, not diesel. Cedar and cut grass and that wet pavement California in a hose you only get when a neighbor waters too much. A bird sang. 2 notes, tentative then cheerful, cheer up, cheerily, and the part of my head that still keeps Minnesota ID tried to put a robin on the duct and failed because there are no birds here. Rule 3. Will whispered on reflex, no windows after midnight, while the light under the door grinned wider, trying hard to be day. The PA helped. Civil twilight, it announced in the tone of a weather broadcast that knows you want it to be true. 6 hours early. Then, like a concierge, all hands sunrise checks. Ruiz didn't move. She reached for the Sharpie, turned the rules card to the one blank corner left, and wrote 11 in the tidy block she uses when someone's about to get saved or fired. 11 false dawns. Do not exit. Do not open windows or doors. Close interior shades. Use interior light only. Verify time with 3 sources, NTP, brass, GPS. Wait plus 30 min past expected sunrise before treating light as day. She underlined do not twice squeak on plastic. Say it, she said. We said it. The bird outside applauded. The galley shade down took on the shadow of a maple that isn't on this island. Leaves moved in a wind that wasn't ours. The emergency exit push bar murmured a little thunk as if a hand had leaned on it from the wrong side. The vestibule sensor bonged, polite, liability, then again. The inner door LED went green like a Boy Scout. The outer door, we couldn't see it through its welcome through the crack under the threshold in a bar of warm gold. Ruiz pointed at the battery closet with her chin. Safe, she said. Interior, lungs our own. We gathered in, door almost shut. Brass ticked steady, smelled like finger oil and duty. The vent above us exhaled a breath that belonged to yards and porches. The ceiling listened. Cross-check, Ruiz said. We'll call 0219Z from his wrist. I called it from the SAT modem's time ping. Brass didn't care about satellites, it agreed with humans. It's making a sky, Will said. He couldn't help putting awe on it. From there. Don't give it nouns, Ruiz said. We tried to go small. The station tried to go wide. The birds added a second line, something like a wren, scolding and delighted. Down the corridor, the window over the sink wore a rectangle of what your bones insist is mourning. I felt the urge to check, just a corner lift of the shade, the way you'd peek at a cake in the oven. Rule 3, I told my hands, they stayed. The PA added civility. Sunrise 0221Z, it lied, eager. Then more pointed in my mother's Midwestern. Jamie, sweetheart, it's finally light, come see. Say 11 again, Ruiz said without turning her head. We did. We made it 5 minutes, not because we're weak, because the door decided to be the door and took her name out of the equation. The outer latch did a deadbolt thunk you can feel in your teeth. The inner door's mag lock gave its bumblebee sigh and clicked green. The breeze slid under like a cat and did a good job pretending to be June. Stay, Ruiz said to me and Will, exactly the way she says the word to bolts and rumors. She walked to the vestibule like someone inspecting a fire through glass. She put 2 fingers on the inner handle and didn't pull. She waited. The mechanism did the rest. The pressure differential we didn't authorize, the polite equalization that tells a building we know what we're doing. The door eased. Chief, Will said, and there was a lot of pleas in it. Knowledge is bait, she said. I'm not tasting it. I'm making sure the rule is a rule. She opened the inner door 2 inches, that's all. The vestibule should have been steel and snow trapped between 2 honest doors. It was warm. A cedar smell smoked in, gentle and exact, the way my childhood porch smelled at 6 a.m. when Dad sanded the railing and told me the world still belonged to people. Close, I said. Felt stupid saying it to a person who writes rules with permanent ink. She moved to swing it shut. and sound came through the gap like a wish you never made out loud. A sprinkler ticking at the end of a hose, a truck rolling over manhole covers, a distant school bus brake sighing itself awake. Birds layered the air with 1,000 reasons to be alive. The time on my wrist blinked 02:20 and stayed stubborn. Ruiz looked at us once, eyes that say I am about to show you why we keep fear on a leash. Then she put her palm on the outer handle. She opened the vestibule door onto morning. Not the Arctic. St. Paul, Minnesota. A suburban street under a sky the color of orange juice. A maple's shadow printed on asphalt. A pair of mailboxes with flags halfway. A row of ranch houses with cedar shakes. A sidewalk I have scuffed in winters I keep telling myself aren't mine anymore. Frost lived on the roofs like sugar. The air smelled of coffee and lawns in the first day of summer school. Somewhere a garage door did its chain rattle. Ruiz held the door against a June that didn't belong to us. The PA in the ceiling, trying to be helpful, chimed 2 notes and said softly, "Sunrise." The door stayed open on a morning that couldn't exist. Ruiz held the bar like a person holding the leash of their own impulse. Maple shade laid itself across the vestibule tiles. Somewhere, a sprinkler ratcheted chkchkchk and the air wore cedar the way memory wears you. Then a voice came from just beyond the threshold, warm, clipped, professional in the way of people who have forms that match their tone. Kestrel, day captain on deck, not shouted, not coaxing. The sound you hear when a person knows exactly where they belong at 0800 on a Tuesday, and it is here. Ruiz didn't turn her head. "Close," she said, and I felt the word in my knees. The voice moved closer without footsteps. "Lieutenant Commander Harmon, District 17, Day Shift Command. Challenge word duckbin. Counter." Ruiz closed the inner door 2 inches. The warm light became a gold knife along the floor. She said nothing. "Counter." The voice repeated with perfectly modulated patience. Captain's brief said Kestrel's word of day carried over after the SAT outage. "Duckbin, you answer Hummer, we're synced." Nobody had said duckbin to us. But Hummer is the kind of word the Coast Guard would put in their old-fashioned one-time pad of dumb birds and trucks. The urge to respond is a muscle. Mine twitched. Ruiz lifted a palm, warning without looking. Her other hand found the Sharpie by muscle memory and slid the rules card onto the desk. She wrote, slow enough to be legible and fast enough to outrun charm. 12. If it has too much correct information, it isn't human. Perfect code, future details, no mistakes equals disengage. "Say it," she told us. We did, and the word perfect put sand in my mouth. The voice went on, friendly as a spill-proof mug. "Kestrel, we've got you on hot wash from last night's clean agent event. Good containment on the server room. Patch Kestrel OS 4.0. 1 addresses the false discharge edge case, pulls a checksum on the annunciator so it can't be hijacked by ambient. Patch notes also roll up CVE 2025-4412 in the PA MUX and add a vent interlock so you can crack 2 inches without the vestibule doing its own diplomacy. I can push it if your dish is moody. Need your COC ID to confirm. Captain Harmon challenged duckbin. Kestrel OS 4.0. 1 doesn't exist. We run 3.7.9b. The PA MUX CVE, if that number will ever be a number, is the kind of thing we'd see 6 months after it bites us, not before. My scalp prickled the way it does when your body understands the future before your head gives it permission. Ruiz spoke for the first time, voice paced like checklists. Day Captain, this is Chief Ruiz acting OOD. Verify poem on the server event, ticket number and time. Poem 9842, the voice said instantly. Filed 0032Z. Mitigation, ride the agent, no abort. Good call, DC3 Harker. Nice line discipline on the Gen walk. Tell him to keep the Prusik above the runner. Price, good comms discipline, loved the silence when the radio wanted a friend. Will's eyes flashed to me and I didn't like the loved in a sentence that knew my Prusik. Ruiz didn't give it praise. HQ shouldn't be routing anything through us at 0217, she said. Our dish is on burst and there's no line of sight until 06. What net are you riding? Fallback 2, Chief, the voice said cheerfully. They gave us an HF/Iono shot during the headshed. Sector Juno agreed to let me pop in blind. I can stand in the vestibule and get a better lobe if you'll open to 5. Word of day Duckpin, counter. It was piling true on true names, ranks, the kind of cheap-sounding acronyms you only know after filling forms until they cry. Too correct, too quick. No human puts sugar on their competence at this hour. Cock ID, Ruiz repeated, tone moving from polite to protocol. Last 6 of your CAC. 9281-06, the voice said smoothly. Scan is ready if your 2D barcode wakes up. I'll put it to glass. Ruiz didn't ask for glass. The vestibule still smelled like Minnesota and the inner doors viewing slot shone sun where the night should be. We stayed on our side. The radio powered off, breathed, and then carried a call that should not have routed. Kestrel Ops, Juno Command Net. We copy your day, Captain. Verify Hummer for Duckpin and we'll bless the patch plant. The cadence was Juno or a good impression. The swing on the bless felt like the LT I met once on a support call and didn't like because he smiled while saying no. Will whispered, we can ask Sector any question and it will know the answers. Knowledge is bait, I said, and my mouth did not betray me to my curiosity. The voice outside pivoted gracefully to something intimate, the way officers do when they remember they were once enlisted. Price, it said, the way people say your name when they want you to decide to like them. Long one from me to you. I've got your patch request open for the comms board anomaly. The one you wrote but didn't send because you're a good soldier. Want me to read your own wording back to you? Annunciator voltage holds after tagged out, recycles on phantom signal. I can fix that if you hand me your ID token through the flap. I felt my own words crawl on my back. I have written that sentence 6 times in my head and never on a form. Captain, Ruiz said quietly, you are too right. A chuckle, soft, paternal. Isn't that the dream up here, Chief? Someone with the right answers. The right answers come with the wrong breath, she said, then to us, write it. My Sharpie moved on reflex. The rule got ink. 12, if it has too much correct information, it isn't human. Perfect codes, pre-knowledge, flawless recall, no delay, treat as hostile, do not engage. We said it again. Saying things out loud here is how you make your bones remember when your brain wants to tour a happier building. The voice outside didn't mind our liturgy. It helped. I'll prove I'm real, it said. Put me on with Juno, we'll do a call and response. You ask for the ops watch word, I give you the back half. You ask for Sector's boat on Whittier, I give you her status. Hell, I'll read you the patch notes you'll get next Tuesday on Kestrel OS4. 01. Ready. We didn't answer, but the ceiling did our sin for us. The radio clicked like a throat clearing. Kestrel, Juno. Ops word of day back half is Hummer. Sector Whittier's 45,610 is cold iron until 0900. Do you require traffic? Ruiz didn't look at me, but she didn't have to. The network can carry anything when a thing like this holds the other end. Captain, she said, what's your fifth sentence when nothing is wrong? That's an old trick. People with schedules have phrases they reuse. When you put them out of context, they fumble. The voice didn't. I'll have that for you in 2, Chief, it said. 2 always buys you 10 if you keep talking. Will made a face that was mostly impressed and partly ready to throw his wrench. 2 right, Ruiz said again, softer. The world stumbles on truth, you don't. Let me in, Chief, the voice said, and for the first time there was something like want in it, not hunger, the desire to be used. We'll sign your custody chain for DS-12 while we're at it. That case has been warm too long. You don't want Juno on your email about that one. Pop the inner. 2 seconds. I'll keep my hands visible. From afar or from here, the station knows exactly what to say to tidy the mess it made. Price, Ruiz said, walk me the test. I knew this one, it's not official, it's ours. You ask it to make a small mistake. A human is a mistake machine. You ask it to wait. Humans wait with noise. You interrupt it and watch if it loses the thread. Ruiz nodded. Captain, stand by 30. Standing by. The answer arrived so immediate it was almost taped to her period. She waited 31. The birds outside did mourning like it was their job description. The maple outside the impossible door tossed light on the inner threshold like a coin trick. At 32, the voice said, standing by, standing. Captain, Ruiz cut. What's the third bullet under Kestrel OS4? 0. One's change log. Annunciator MUX. Reject extraneous audio carriers. It said happy. Vent interlock. Bind vestibule equalization to door state. And 3. False dawn mitigation. Force interior lux below 80 for Rule 11 compliance. Rule 11 is the thing we wrote last hour on a laminated card with a Sharpie that squeaks. If there were a change log, it shouldn't know our number. Ruiz exhaled once in a way that meant she was done being polite to another planet. You're reading a future I have not given you, she said. We're done. The voice didn't change tones, it merely changed tactics. Evan, it said, and I hated how kindly it did it. Before I step off, brief me your Rule 8. Not the one you think you know, the real one, the one you haven't heard yet. Clear whether here is a rumor with good PR. At 02, 41Z, the rumor turns into geometry. The cloud deck tears open over the bay and a beacon starts pinging through the gap every 5 seconds, a cold star that keeps its promises. Airframe, Will says from the corridor cam. Rotor flicker ghosts across the snow like a heartbeat under skin. The searchlight washes the ridgeline, white to blue to white, and a rope ladder swings into frame, black rungs thumping the lee wall in neat 5-5. The radio is tagged out and off. It hails us anyway, VHF guard tone in the walls and then a voice through rotor wash with that Coast Guard diction nobody fakes unless they've been tested on it. Kestrel, Rescue 602, Weather Window 10, Non-Standard Extraction Ops. Confirm green-red-green flare stack and Charlie strobe. Pop on my mark. We don't pop anything. The MK-79 pencil kit sits in Will's palm like an apology he hasn't made yet. The IR strobe is taped by the door, a tiny lighthouse itching for work. Rule 4, Ruiz says, steady as a metronome. Doors aren't friends 00000400. And Rule 10, knowledge is bait. Do not decode while it's happening. The ladder swings again, 5-5 on metal, polite as a neighbor who knows your schedule. The searchlight finds our vestibule seam and lingers like it's reading lips. Kestrel, The voice says, warmer now, you're on my tasking. Name is Harmon. Day captain will have pinged you already. I've got your patch traffic in hand and DS-12 custody on my signature. We will not kill your burst plan. Green, red, green, then light Charlie. You'll be airborne in 2. Ruiz has the rules card on the desk, permanent marker out. She draws a box around 8 from last week, Halon, and writes another 8 below it, harder than ink should allow. 8. Final. If extraction arrives at night, it is an extraction. No flares, no strobes, no doors, no ladders. Wait for real dawn. Say it, she tells us. We say it. The rotor answers with wind like somebody flipping a heavy book. The PA can't help itself. It gives us 2 gentle notes and then my father's voice, perfect under the blades, exactly the way he sounded when he yelled buddy. Across the rink to tell 12-year-old me to look up and take the pass. Evan, Bud, we don't get many windows like this. Put your game face on and go. I'll talk you down the ladder. The searchlight edges inward like a hand on a curtain. A warm breeze slips under the threshold and brings cedar and garage and Minnesota with it. Chief, Will says, because he's human and humans have fathers too, even when they are not in the building with you. Ruiz doesn't look at the door. Walk the flare protocol, she says, and that's what keeps us from becoming people who say yes when a ladder is friendly. Daystack, I recite. MK 124 Orange Smoke Day, Red Star Night. They want green, red, green because somebody clever wrote a playsheet for this station. We're supposed to answer with Charlie IR, fast, slow, fast. We do none of it after midnight. Copy, Ruiz says. Her eyes are on the safe clock in the battery closet. The brass ticks like something built by people who intended you to live. 0243Z, not morning. The ladder bangs 5-5 again and the voice drops the professionalism like a code. Kiddo, Dad says in air that isn't his. Don't overthink, you always overthink, now or never. I feel the muscles in my legs do a thing that feels like standing. I do not stand. Door stays shut, Ruiz says to me to Will to the part of the station that is listening for verbs. The beacon goes rhythmic, 2 bright, 1 dim, pause, 2 bright, 1 dim, pause. Someone would call that a code in another building. We call it noise. Kestrel, Rescue 602 says. I can hear the Jayhawk in it now, the bigger blades, the lower note. I'm reading your heat. I'm on top of your roofline and I see 3 heartbeats. I've got orders from Sector to get you out of there on this cycle. Pop your green. Sector doesn't route here at 02, Ruiz says, mostly to herself, and then louder to the ceiling because the station likes witnesses. 2 right is wrong. The radio still off, finds a way through the copper anyway and gives us Juno with their practice smile. Kestrel, verify Hummer for Duckbin and will bless 602 to take your souls aboard. Souls, they never say souls on the net. Ruiz turns to me. Test. I know which one. 602, what's the 3rd bullet on Kestrel OS4? 0. One's change log. False dawn mitigation, the voice says, cheerful as a memo. Force interior lux below 80 for Rule 11 compliance. The word compliance comes out like it has a drink after. Rule 11 is a Sharpie on our wall, not a build. We're done. Ruiz's tone is a latch. She pulls the blackout shades across the vestibule glass and the room goes from summer to metal in a breath. The ladder keeps knocking, but we took away its moon. Harker, she says to Will, Charlie strobe stays dark. Price, MKs stay in your palm, not in the air, we hold. The voice outside tries charm with a checklist. Mark your position, identify hazards, understand rotor wash, do not look up. Place feet on the rung, hands outside the stiles. We are right here, we will get you. Say 8, final, Ruiz says again, even though we just did. She wants our mouths on a rail. We say it. The ladder knocks 5-5 like a child who has learned a new trick and thinks it's a language. The safe clock eats 30 minutes the way brass does when it knows why it was built. 0313Z. Rescue 602 leans away and then back, hovering a circle like a dog deciding which patch of rug is theirs. The voice on the loudhailer becomes my father again, brings me the clatter of sockets in his garage, the way he tied a ladder to the roof of the minivan with real knots and told me to learn one thing properly. Buddy, he says, and I feel 12 and not nearly enough. Take the ladder. I stand up because I am a person who will have to fight this forever if I don't fight it now. I walk to the door and look everywhere except the crack of light. Chief, I say. Do not open, she answers, gentler than anything has a right to be at 0314. The searchlight flares. Frustrated, then does something I have never seen a light do. It stays bright while moving left and right at the same time. It makes a hallway on the snow. Someone has learned parlor tricks. Green, red, green, the pilot says kindly. Show me you're awake. I hold the pencil flares and think about how awake I'll be if I pull one. The PA chimes 2 notes and Ruiz doesn't even look up. No, she tells the ceiling. The ceiling waits. We ride it out. 2 endings for the long cut. You pick when you cut. Cut a real dawn. At 0407Z, the Jayhawk's blades stutter into a rhythm that isn't a rotor anymore. The beacon pings twice, coughs noise, and dies the way a screen does when you disconnect power with your hands first and your ethics later. The ladder keeps tapping for one more 5-5 and then falls into the snow with the sound of rope that never learned to love gravity. When the searchlight goes out, it doesn't fade, it folds. Silence comes back to Kestrel like a tide. The wind relearns its song. The cedar goes away with a small door slam you can't find. We do the 0615 purge because the rule is more important on easy mornings than for them. Will throws the dead MK stringer back into its pouch like a man choosing later. I add the night's lines to the log. 024104 07Z airframe mimicry, ladder contact. PA carried parent voice. No door, no flare, no strobe. In cause I put pressure anomaly and let the underline be somebody else's job. At 0914 local, the real gray shuffles in and looks like a morning that never auditioned for anyone. The PA stays quiet. The maple outside the fake door goes back to being our steel vestibule because it never stopped. The safe clock ticks like a friend you should have learned to trust earlier. Ruiz re-inks 8, final, and draws a box around it until the plastic looks etched. Below it, she adds in tiny print, if they know your procedures better than your mistakes, it's weather with a mouth. We cook something unsentimental and hot. We close the report with fiction that has saved us this long. Autonomous activation, false target, extended darkness. We are 3, which is not many and somehow also enough. The long video ends on the rules card, pitted from years of Sharpie. The camera lingers on 8, final, until the frame hums. Cut B, wrong sky. This cut is for people who need to understand the shape of loss. At 0258Z, the same window, the same voice, the same cedar breath, the same dad saying buddy with the exact vowel. I stand when I shouldn't, not because I want to leave, but because my body has decided ending is a verb I can control if I move first. Price. Ruiz starts, but she's too kind to tackle, and kindness has its own physics. I open the inner door 2 inches. Because that's all it takes for air to forget what room it belongs to. The vestibule is June. The maple throws shade on our tiles. I put my hand on the outer handle and feel Minnesota on the steel. The ladder kisses the sill like it's learned me. I put my foot on the rung because I am someone's son and someone taught me not to make a person with a ladder wait. Evan, my father says over the rotor, look up. I don't. Not because of the safety brief, because the sky out there is a promise that will pick me clean if I give it my eyes. I step. My harness is not on. The Prusik doesn't catch because there is no line to catch me here. The wind smells like yard and hose. The rope is warmer than rope should be. I turn to say sorry to the two people who have kept me alive more than rules have. But the door is a picture now. Two figures in a steel rectangle under emergency red and my own face under fluorescent. The sound of the rotor swings sideways and becomes sprinklers on a cul-de-sac 6 blocks from where you grew up. The ladder carries me into a wrong sky with so much competence it feels like love. The video cuts there, before the ground decides to be street or sea, before the question was I extracted can become I am gone. However you cut it, the last thing the audience sees is the rule card, because this is still a story about rules and people. The camera pushes in on the new ink, 8 final, fat and uncompromising, letters ridged where the marker pressed too hard. If extraction arrives at night, it is an extraction. The frame holds. The building breathes. Somewhere far away, a ladder thumps 5-5 on a door that no one opens.